the crystal shattered against marble, champagne glass exploding into 1,000 glittering pieces that nobody bothered to clean up. Maya Torres didn't hear it over the sound of her own pulse hammering in her ears as she yanked at the locked golden doors. They wouldn't move. Behind her, 30 women in silk gowns whispered and stared, their perfect makeup hiding perfect cruelty. Maya's worn sneakers squeaked against polished floors, worth more than her entire life. What was supposed to be a $5,000 modeling competition had just become something else entirely. When Jae-hai and Kong descended that staircase and announced the real prize, marriage to him, heir to a criminal empire older than the city itself, Maya's world cracked open. She refused. Loudly, publicly, in front of everyone. And in the most twisted turn of fate, the one woman who failed every test, who wouldn't play the game, became the one he chose. Want to know how a girl fighting to survive got trapped in a world of blood and diamonds? Hit that like button, comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches, and stay until the end. You won't believe where this goes. The email had come on a Tuesday. Maya Torres had been eating ramen for the 4th night in a row, sitting on her apartment floor because the electricity was out again and the kitchen table had been sold 3 months ago. Her phone, ancient cracked screen, held together with a case from a gas station, had buzzed with a notification that changed everything. Exclusive modeling opportunity. $5,000 grand prize. All expenses paid. Professional portfolio shoot. Transportation provided. Reply to confirm. Maya had stared at it for 20 minutes. Her finger had hovered over the delete button because she knew better. Nothing in life came free. Nothing that sounded too good to be true ever was. But $5,000. $5,000 meant 3 months of breathing room, meant fixing the leak that had turned her ceiling into a waterfall last week, meant actual food instead of whatever was cheapest at the corner store. She'd clicked confirm before she could talk herself out of it. The black town car had arrived exactly on time 3 days later. The driver hadn't spoken, hadn't even looked at her as she'd climbed into the back seat wearing her only decent pair of jeans and a blazer borrowed from a neighbor who'd stopped asking questions about why Maya always looked tired. The car had smelled like leather and money, that particular scent rich people carried without trying, the kind that came from never worrying about next month's rent. They'd driven for 40 minutes, leaving the broken streets of Maya's neighborhood behind, passing through areas where the potholes disappeared and the buildings grew taller and cleaner. When they'd finally stopped at a gate, wrought iron, 15 feet tall, topped with cameras that probably cost more than Maya made in a year, her stomach had clenched. "Where are we?" she'd asked. The driver had pressed a button, the gates had opened. He still hadn't answered. The estate beyond had looked like something from a movie. Manicured lawns that went on forever, fountains, gardens with paths that curved and disappeared into perfectly trimmed hedges. And at the center of it all, a mansion that wasn't trying to be subtle about its wealth. Stone and glass and angles that suggested architects had been paid too much to care about practicality. Maya had clutched her portfolio, photographs she'd taken herself, printed at a FedEx for 50 cents each, stored in a plastic sleeve, and had told herself to breathe. Rich people were just people. This was just a job. She'd smile, pose for some photos, collect her check, and never think about this place again. She'd been wrong about all of it. The ballroom had been excessive. That was the only word for it. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from ceilings painted with scenes Maya didn't recognize. The floor was marble polished to a mirror shine. Windows stretched from floor to ceiling, overlooking gardens lit with soft lights that made everything look unreal. A string quartet played in one corner, actual musicians, playing actual instruments, for a modeling competition. The other women had arrived dressed like they were attending a gala. Evening gowns in jewel tones, heels that added 6 inches, jewelry that caught the light and screamed money. They'd looked at Maya in her jeans and scuffed sneakers, white canvas with a coffee stain on the left toe that wouldn't come out no matter how hard she scrubbed. And their faces had done that thing, not quite disgust, more like erasure, like she was furniture, background, irrelevant. Maya had found a corner and had tried to disappear into it. She'd counted the women. 32. All of them more polished, more prepared, more everything than she was. A blonde girl in a blue dress had smiled at her, nervous, genuine, and had introduced herself as Claire. "First time?" Claire had whispered. Yeah. You? Third, I did one of these last month in the city. Didn't place, but the portfolio shots were worth it. She'd glanced around, lowering her voice further. Some of these girls do the circuit. They know the organizers. It's kind of rigged, honestly. Maya's stomach had sunk. Great. Hey, but the prize is real, $5,000. That's worth showing up for, right? Before Maya could answer, the doors had closed. Not slowly, not gradually. They'd slammed shut with a sound like a vault ceiling, and the golden handles had clicked with a finality that made Maya's skin crawl. She'd been standing near the entrance, close enough to reach out and touch them. She'd grabbed the handles and pulled. Nothing. Locked tight. "Excuse me?" Claire had called out, her voice bright but strained. "I think the doors are stuck." No one had answered. The women in gowns had kept sipping champagne. The quartet had kept playing. Like this was normal. Like doors locking during a modeling competition was just part of the event. Maya had pulled harder. Her palms had started sweating against the gold. "Hey," she'd said, louder now. "The doors are locked. Someone needs to—" The lights had dimmed. The quartet had stopped mid-measure. The chatter had died. Even the clink of champagne glasses had gone silent. A spotlight had flickered on at the top of a curved double staircase Maya hadn't noticed before, and every head in the room had turned. The man who'd descended those stairs had moved wrong. That was Maya's first thought. Too smooth. Too controlled. Like he'd practiced every step, calculated every angle to create maximum impact. He'd been young, maybe 30, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Maya had made in her entire life. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp edges and harder eyes. When he'd looked at the room, Maya had felt it like a physical weight. "Good evening," he'd said. His voice had been quiet, but it had carried. "My name is Jae Hyan Kong. Thank you for accepting my invitation." Claire had leaned close to Maya. "Oh my God, this is one of those matchmaking things. My friend tried one last year. They're so weird, but apparently some rich guys—" "This is not a matchmaking service." Jae Hyan's gaze had cut to Claire like a knife. She'd flinched and gone silent. "This is a competition. You were told the truth about that. But the prize—" He'd paused on the stairs, letting the silence stretch. "The prize is not $5,000. The room had erupted, women shouting over each other, some laughing, that nervous, disbelieving sound people make when reality breaks. Some demanding to be let out. Maya had just stood there, her hand still on the door handle, ice spreading through her chest. A woman in a red dress had stepped forward, older than most of the others, maybe 35, with the kind of polish that came from growing up with money. "This is ridiculous. You can't keep us here. People don't do this. You can't just—" "No one is keeping you," Jae Hyan had said smoothly. "The doors will unlock in exactly 4 hours. Anyone who wishes to leave at that time may do so. No one will stop you. But until then, I'm asking you to stay, to listen, to consider." "Consider what?" another woman had demanded. "A proposal." He descended another step. The spotlight had followed him. "The prize is not money. The prize is marriage. To me. One of you, the one who proves herself most worthy, will become my wife." The silence that followed had been absolute. Then chaos. Women shouting, some heading for the doors, pulling uselessly, some crying. The woman in red had started laughing, sharp, hysterical bursts that didn't sound sane. Maya had felt bile rise in her throat. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She'd come here for modeling photos and rent money, and instead she'd walked into what? Some kind of sick game? A trap? "This is insane," she'd said. Not loudly. But in the sudden quiet, as everyone ran out of words, her voice had carried. Every face had turned to her. Jae Hyan's gaze had found her for the first time. Really looked at her. His expression had shifted, not softened, but changed in a way Maya couldn't read. "What's your name?" he'd asked. "None of your business." Someone had gasped. Maya hadn't cared. Terror was curdling into rage in her stomach, and rage felt better than helpless. "You disagree with the premise," Jae Hyan had said. Not a question. "I disagree with being locked in a room and lied to. I disagree with whatever sick fantasy this is. I want out. Right now. The doors will open in 4 hours. That's not good enough. It's all I'm offering." He'd started down the stairs again, heading straight for her. Maya had wanted to back away, Every instinct screamed at her to run. But there was nowhere to go, and something stubborn in her refused to flinch. He'd stopped 3 feet away. Up close, his eyes were darker than she'd thought. Empty, like looking into deep water and seeing nothing but your own reflection. "What's your name?" he'd asked again. "Maya Torres. Not that it matters because I'm leaving the second those doors open and I never want to see you again." "Maya Torres." He'd repeated it like he was memorizing it. "You came for money." "I came for what I was promised, a modeling job, not whatever this is." "And what do you think this is?" "Kidnapping, coercion. Pick your legal term." A muscle in his jaw had tightened. "You're not wrong, but you're also not in danger. Not from me," says the man who locked the doors. "For your protection." That's what they all say. For the first time, something almost like amusement had crossed his face. "You're angry. You're observant." "Good. Anger means you're thinking clearly. Fear makes people stupid. Anger makes them sharp." He'd stepped back, addressing the room again, but keeping his eyes on Maya. "Let me be clear about what's happening here. This is a competition. There will be tests, challenges, questions designed to reveal character. At the end of 4 hours, I will make my choice. The woman I select will become my wife in 6 weeks. She will want for nothing. She will have access to resources most people can't imagine. She will be protected and provided for. In return, she will stand beside me. Be seen with me. Play a role in a world you don't yet understand. And if we all refuse," the woman in red demanded, "if we all walk out, then I'll be disappointed and you'll have wasted an evening." But his smile had been sharp enough to cut. "I don't think you'll all refuse. Some of you knew what this was before you arrived. Your families arranged it, prepared you. Some of you came hoping for exactly this opportunity, a chance to marry into power. And some of you," his gaze had returned to Maya, "some of you are here by accident, but accidents can become fate if you let them." "Poetic," Maya had said flatly. "Still kidnapping." "Noted." He'd turned to address the room. "First test. Honesty. Tell me why you're here. Tell me what you want. Lie to me and you're eliminated immediately." The woman in red had gone first. She'd wanted security, she'd said, a powerful husband. Her family's business was failing and she needed the kind of protection that came with the Kong name. She'd been articulate and poised, and Maya had watched her perform like this was an audition she'd rehearsed. Others had followed. Some wanted money. Some wanted status. 3 different women had admitted their parents had arranged this, had been in contact with Jay Hyan's people for months. One had cried and said she just wanted to be loved. Jay Hyan had looked at her with something almost like pity and had eliminated her on the spot. "Love is a fairy tale," he'd said. "I'm offering a transaction. If you can't tell the difference, you don't belong here." When it had been Maya's turn, when his attention had swung back to her and every eye in the room had followed, she'd met his gaze and hadn't blinked. "I want to leave," she'd said. "That's my honest answer. I want out of this room, out of this house, and I never want to think about you or this night again." "Why?" "Because this is insane, because I didn't sign up for this, because I have a life, a shitty life, but it's mine, and I don't need rescuing by someone who thinks women are prizes to be won." Something had flickered in his expression. "You think that's what this is? Isn't it?" "No." He'd been quiet for a moment. "But I can see why you'd think so." Noted. Next. The tests had continued. Logic puzzles, pattern recognition, questions about loyalty and ambition and what they'd sacrifice for power. Maya hadn't participated. She'd sat in a corner, arms crossed, watching the clock on the wall tick toward freedom. She'd watched women eliminated for hesitating, for lying, for being too eager, for not being eager enough. It had been like watching auditions for a role no one fully understood. When the 4 hours had finally ended, the doors had clicked open. Maya had been the first one there. She'd grabbed the handle, pulled, felt the door swing wide. Night air had hit her face like salvation. She'd stepped into the hallway, marble here too, lined with paintings that probably belonged in museums, and had headed for what she hoped was an exit. Maya Torres. His voice had stopped her. She'd turned despite every instinct screaming to keep going. Jay Hyan had been standing in the doorway to the ballroom, backlit by chandelier light. You failed every test. Good. I wasn't trying to pass. You refused to participate. Also good. And yet, he'd said, and his voice had dropped lower, you're the one I'm choosing. The world had tilted. Maya had actually grabbed the wall to steady herself. What? The competition is over. I've made my decision. You'll be my wife. Laughter had bubbled up in her throat. You've lost your mind. I'm leaving. You can't. Watch me. She'd turned to go and had found the hallway blocked. Men in dark suits, 4 of them. Not threatening, not exactly, but present. Solid. Between her and freedom. Let me through, Maya had said. They hadn't moved. She'd looked back at Jay Hyan. Call them off. I can't do that. You mean you won't? I mean, it's not that simple. He'd walked toward her slowly. There are rules to this world, Maya. Families with territories and agreements older than either of us. I just publicly claimed you as my bride in front of witnesses from every major family in the city. Do you understand what that means? It means you're delusional. It means every enemy I have now knows your name, your face, where you live, the people you know. His voice had been flat, factual, terrifying in its certainty. If I let you walk out of here right now, you'll be dead before sunrise. They'll use you to hurt me. Some will kill you quickly. Others won't. All of them will make sure I know about it. Maya's pulse had been so loud in her ears she could barely hear him. You're lying. You're trying to scare me into... I'm telling you the truth. The only truth that matters. He'd stopped in front of her. You can hate me. You can fight this. You can refuse to cooperate. But you cannot leave. Not safely. Not now. So what? I'm just... a prisoner? A guest. Under my protection. A prisoner, Maya had repeated. Her voice had shaken. You're keeping me here against my will. That's called kidnapping. Yes, he'd agreed quietly. It is. And I'm sorry for that. But I'd rather you hate me and stay alive than walk out that door and prove me right when they find your body tomorrow. The men in suits hadn't moved. The hallway had felt like it was closing in. Maya had looked at Jay Hyan, really looked, trying to find the lie in his face. The manipulation, the trick. She'd seen only certainty. How long? She'd whispered. 6 weeks, until the wedding. After that, you'll be protected by law and custom. My wife is untouchable. But until then, I'm trapped. You're safe. Same thing. No, he'd said. It's not. But I understand why you can't see the difference right now. A woman had appeared from a side hallway, older, maybe 50, dressed in simple clothes that still looked expensive. Mr. Kong, the room is ready. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. He'd gestured down the hall. Maya, Mrs. Chen will show you to your quarters. You'll find everything you need there. Food, clothes, anything you want within reason. Except freedom. His jaw had tightened. Except that. Yes. Maya had wanted to scream, to fight, to do something other than follow Mrs. Chen down endless hallways while her world collapsed. But what choice did she have? The men in suits, the locked doors, the calm certainty in Jay Hyan's voice when he talked about her dying. She'd followed because there was nothing else to do. The room had been obscene, bigger than her entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, marble bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in, walk-in closet filled with clothes in her exact size, which had been the most terrifying detail because it meant he'd planned this, had known she'd refuse, had prepared for it. Mrs. Chen had set a tray of food on the nightstand. You should eat. I'm not hungry. You will be. The food will be here when you're ready. She'd moved toward the door. The door locks from the outside for your safety. My safety, Maya had repeated numbly. Yes. Mrs. Chen's expression had been unreadable. I know this is difficult. I know you're frightened, but Mr. Kong is not lying about the danger. You're safer here than anywhere else right now. How comforting. Mrs. Chen had left without another word. The lock had clicked. Maya had been alone. She'd tested the door 17 times. Had tried the windows, sealed, wouldn't open. Had found the cameras, 3 of them, small and discreet, and had covered them with towels from the bathroom. It had been a useless gesture. They could probably see through towels, but it had made her feel slightly less exposed. Then she'd sat on the floor with her back against the bed and had let herself shake. Just for a minute. Just long enough to process that her life had fractured into before and after. Before the email. After the locked doors. She'd survived worse. That's what she'd told herself. She'd survived her parents dying when she was 18. Survived living alone with no money and no family. Survived eviction notices and disconnected utilities and nights when dinner was whatever she could shoplift from the corner store without getting caught. She could survive this. She had to. The panic attack had hit around midnight. Maya had been trying to sleep, still in her clothes, on top of the silk sheets, with all the lights on, when her chest had tightened and her vision had gone spotty. She'd pressed her forehead to her knees and had forced herself to breathe. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. The technique she'd learned from a free clinic counselor after her parents died. It had taken 20 minutes for her heart to stop trying to punch through her ribs. When Mrs. Chen had knocked at dawn, Maya had been awake. She'd been awake all night, staring at the ceiling, running through escape scenarios that all ended the same way. Locked doors, men in suits, nowhere to run. Not hungry, Maya had said when Mrs. Chen entered with breakfast. Mr. Kong said you'd say that. Mrs. Chen had set the tray down anyway. He also said to tell you that starving yourself won't change anything except how weak you feel. Tell him I said, I won't. Mrs. Chen's voice had been firm. I won't tell him anything you say. That's not my job. My job is to make sure you eat and sleep and don't hurt yourself trying to escape. So you're my jailer. I'm your protection, whether you believe that or not. She'd left. Maya had stared at the food, eggs that looked perfect, toast that smelled fresh, fruit that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget, and had hated how much she'd wanted it. Hating it hadn't stopped her from eating. Survival had won that argument. The days had blurred. Maya had refused to unpack the expensive clothes, had worn her jeans and t-shirt until they'd smelled, had avoided the mirrors because looking at herself felt like admitting this was real. Jay Hyan had visited once a day, sometimes just standing in the doorway, sometimes trying to talk to her about things she didn't want to hear, the families, the territories, the rules that governed a world she'd never known existed. Maya had stopped listening, had stopped responding, had turned herself into stone. On the 4th day, he'd brought someone new. Hey! The guy had been younger than Jay Hyan, maybe 25, dressed in jeans and a leather jacket. His smile had been easy in a way Jay Hyan's never was. I'm Marcus, Jay's cousin. He thought you might want someone to talk to who isn't him. I don't. Cool. Can I sit anyway? He'd sat on the floor across from where Maya had been curled in the corner. She'd stopped using the furniture out of spite and had pulled out a deck of cards. You play poker? No. Want to learn? No. Perfect. So basically you're trying to get the best combination of cards. He'd started dealing, ignoring her complete lack of interest, explaining rules she didn't care about. Maya had lasted maybe 10 minutes before curiosity had cracked her silence. Why are you here? Because Jay's terrible at people. Marcus had grinned. He's good at strategy, great at intimidation, brilliant at running the business, but actual human conversation, not his strong suit. So he sent me. To what? Befriend me into compliance? To teach you poker and maybe make this less miserable for both of you. I don't want to be here. I know. I want to go home. I know that too. Marcus had looked at her seriously for the first time. But you can't. Not yet. So you can either spend 6 weeks being angry and alone, or you can let someone teach you poker. Your call. It had been the your call that had gotten her. The acknowledgement that she had any choice at all in this nightmare. Maya had picked up the cards he'd dealt her. What beats what? She'd asked. Marcus had come back every day after that, had taught her poker, then chess, then how to pick a simple lock with a hairpin. Just in case, he'd said with a wink that suggested he knew exactly how the doors worked. He'd talked about normal things, movies, music, the weather, like she was a person instead of a prisoner. It hadn't made her less angry, but it had made the days bearable. On the 8th day, everything had changed. Maya had been alone, staring out the window at gardens she couldn't walk in when she'd heard it. Shouting, crashes, the sharp crack that her brain identified as gunfire even though she'd never heard a gun in real life. Her door had slammed open. Not Jay Hyan, not Marcus. A stranger in dark clothes with cold eyes and a gun in his hand. He'd looked at her. She'd looked at him. Maya Torres? He'd said. She'd run. No thought. No plan. Just pure animal instinct that screamed move. She'd ducked past him. He'd been surprised, hadn't expected her to charge, and had made it into the hallway. More men, unfamiliar faces. She'd gone the opposite direction, barefoot on marble, her breath ragged. Behind her shouting, footsteps. Getting closer. She'd taken turns at random, had found stairs and had gone down because down meant outside meant escape. 3 flights. Her legs burning, her lungs screaming. Through a door that opened into a kitchen. Industrial-sized. Stainless steel and hanging pots. One person standing at a counter. Jay Hyan. He'd been on his phone. When he'd seen her, wild-eyed, gasping, terrified, his entire face had changed. "Get behind me," he'd said. Not to her. Into the phone. Then he'd ended the call and had moved toward her just as the door burst open behind her. What happened next had been too fast to track. The man with the gun had raised it. Jay Hyan had thrown a knife. Where had he gotten a knife? And the gun had clattered away. They'd fought hand to hand, brutal, efficient, all elbows and leverage and violence Maya had only seen in movies. Then another man had come through the door. He'd walked straight toward Maya where she'd frozen against a counter. "You're coming with me," he'd said. "No." Not a question. He'd grabbed her arm, hard enough to leave marks, had started dragging her toward the door. Maya's hand had found a pan on the counter. Cast iron. Heavy. She'd swung it without thinking. It had connected with his temple with a sound she'd never forget. He'd staggered. She'd hit him again, and again, and again until he'd stopped moving, and there'd been blood on the floor, and on the pan, and on her hands, and arms had wrapped around her from behind. She'd screamed and fought until, "Maya, stop. It's me." Jay Hyan's voice, his arms, holding her upright because her legs had given out. "He's dead," Maya had whispered. The man on the floor wasn't moving. Blood pooled around his head. "I killed him." "You defended yourself." "I killed him. I killed him. Look at me." Jay Hyan had turned her around, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You did what you had to do. You survived. Do you understand? You survived." But his words hadn't reached her, not through the ringing in her ears, the shaking in her hands, the reality that she'd just ended someone's life and would never be the same. She'd thrown up. Right there on the kitchen floor. Jay Hyan had held her hair back and said nothing, because what could he say? Later, after the bodies were gone and the blood was cleaned and Maya had been moved to a different room in a different wing, Jay Hyan had explained. "The Song family," he'd said. "They didn't accept you as my choice. Thought you were weak, an opening they could exploit. They tried to kidnap me." Maya's voice had been hollow. "Yes." "To hurt you." "Yes." "And I killed one of them." Jay Hyan had been quiet. Then, "You did. What happens now? Now they know you're not defenseless. Now they'll think twice before trying again." "I don't want them to think twice. I want to go home." "I know." For the first time, he'd sounded truly sorry. "But you can't. After tonight, you definitely can't. You've killed a member of the Song family. That makes you part of this whether you want to be or not." Maya had stared at her hands. There'd been blood under her fingernails. She'd scrubbed until her skin was raw. "I need you to understand something," Jay Hyan had said quietly. "This world, my world, it doesn't forgive weakness. It doesn't forget. You can either let what happened tonight destroy you, or you can use it, learn from it, become stronger because of it." "You want me to be grateful I killed someone?" "No, I want you to survive, and survival in this world means being harder than the people who want to hurt you." He'd left her alone after that. Maya had sat in the new room, similar to the old one, just different walls, different cage, and had tried to process what she'd become. 8 days ago, she'd been a girl struggling to pay rent. Now she was a killer, trapped in a world she didn't understand, engaged to a man she didn't know. The anger had come back. Hotter this time, cleaner. She'd been running her whole life. From debt collectors. from her parents' deaths, from anything hard or painful. And where had it gotten her? Here, trapped, forced to kill to survive. But tonight she hadn't been helpless. Tonight she'd fought back. And she'd won. The thought settled into something colder, sharper. If she was stuck here, and it seemed she was, maybe it was time to stop running. When Jae Hyan had knocked the next morning, Maya had opened the door herself. Before he could speak, she'd said, "I want to learn." Learn what? Everything. How this world works, how to defend myself, how to not be the weakest person in every room. Jae Hyan had studied her for a long moment. Something in his expression had shifted. "You're sure? Do I look unsure?" "You look dangerous," he'd said, and he'd smiled. "Good. We start today." And that was how Maya Torres, who'd killed a man and survived a kidnapping attempt and refused to break, took her first step into a world she couldn't escape. The real question, the one that would haunt her in the weeks to come, was whether she was choosing to survive, or choosing to become something she'd never be able to come back from. Training started at 5 in the morning. Maya learned this when someone pounded on her door hard enough to rattle the frame. She jerked awake, disoriented, her heart already racing before she'd fully opened her eyes. "Up!" a voice called through the door. Male. Not Jae Hyan. "You've got 10 minutes. Maya had looked at the clock. 4:52 a.m. "You're joking. 9 minutes now." She dragged herself out of bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, because she still refused to touch the wardrobe full of expensive things that weren't hers. Her mouth tasted like something had died in it. Her body ached from tension she'd been carrying for days. She'd splashed water on her face, pulled her hair into a knot, and had opened the door at exactly 4:59. The man waiting in his hallway was built like a brick wall. Older, maybe 50, with scars on his knuckles and a face that suggested he'd broken more noses than he'd shaken hands with. He'd looked her up and down with an expression that said he wasn't impressed. "You're the girl," he'd said. "I'm Maya." "I know who you are. I'm Han. You're late. I was told 10 minutes, and you took all of them. That's late." He turned and started walking. "Keep up." Maya had followed because what else was she going to do? They'd gone down hallways she hadn't seen before, through a section of the house that looked less like a palace and more like a fortress. Concrete walls, security doors, cameras everywhere. Han had used a key card to open a heavy door that led to a staircase going down. The basement had been massive. One section was a gym that would have made a professional athlete jealous. Weight machines, punching bags, mats covering half the floor. The other section was something else entirely. Gun range, targets, a table covered in weapons Maya couldn't name. "This is where you'll spend your mornings," Han had said. 5 to 8, every day, no exceptions. Doing what? Not dying. He'd walked to the mats, turned to face her. "Mr. Kong says you want to learn to protect yourself. That right?" "Yes." "Why?" The question had caught her off guard. "What do you mean, why?" "I mean, why do you want to learn? Revenge? Fear? Ambition? The reason matters because it determines how I train you." Maya had thought about the man on the kitchen floor, the blood on her hands, the way she'd felt completely helpless until she'd grabbed that pan. "I'm tired of being weak." "Weak?" Han had made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You killed a song enforcer with a frying pan. You're not weak, you're untrained. There's a difference." "Then train me." "That's what I'm here for." He'd gestured at the mats. "But first I need to see what I'm working with. Attack me." Maya had stared at him. "What?" "You heard me. Attack me, however you want. Don't hold back." "I'm not going to—" "Then we're done here." Han had turned away. "I don't train people who won't fight." Something hot had flared in Maya's chest. She'd charged him. No technique, no plan, just momentum and anger. She'd been fast, but Han had been faster. He'd sidestepped, grabbed her arm, and had put her on the mat so quickly she hadn't even processed the movement. 1 second she'd been standing, the next she'd been flat on her back with the air knocked out of her lungs. "Again," Han had said. Maya had gotten up, had tried again, same result, and again, and again. By the 10th attempt, she'd been sweating and furious, and her shoulder had been screaming from hitting the mat. "You done?" Han had asked. "No." Maya had pushed herself up one more time, had circled him, looking for an opening, had feinted left and gone right, and had actually managed to touch his shoulder before he'd swept her legs and put her down again. This time he'd offered her a hand. She'd taken it. Better, he'd said. You're predictable, but you're fast. And you don't quit. That's what I needed to know. He'd gestured to the mats. Sit. Let's talk about what you're actually going to learn. They'd sat cross-legged facing each other. Maya's hands had been shaking from adrenaline. First thing you need to understand, Han had said, is that fighting isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being willing to do what the other person won't. You already know that. You killed a man with whatever was nearby. That's good instinct. I'm going to teach you how to do it on purpose. You're going to teach me to kill people. I'm going to teach you to survive. Sometimes that's the same thing. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya learned what survival actually meant. Han taught her how to throw a punch that would break someone's nose instead of her own fingers, how to use her attacker's weight against them, where to strike to disable, where to strike to kill. He drilled her on awareness, how to read a room, spot exits, identify threats, how to move through space like she belonged there, how to make herself small or large depending on what the situation required. The training was brutal. Maya went to bed every night with new bruises, woke up every morning sore in places she hadn't known could hurt, but she showed up at 4:52 every single day. And slowly, painfully, she started to get better. Jay Hyan watched sometimes. He'd appear in the doorway to the training room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He never interrupted, never commented, just watched. It had made Maya's skin crawl at first. Then she'd started using it, started pushing harder when he was there, proving something she couldn't quite name. After training, she'd shower and find breakfast waiting in her room. After breakfast, Marcus would show up with books. History books about the families, organization charts showing who controlled what territory, maps of the city divided into colored sections that represented generations of violence and negotiation. This is the Kim family, Marcus had explained one afternoon, pointing to a section of the map colored blue. They control the ports, shipping, imports, anything that comes in by water. They've held it for 40 years. Before that, it belonged to the Park family. But there was a disagreement. Disagreement, Maya had repeated. War. Small one, lasted 6 weeks. 37 people died. The Kims won. That's how it works here. Everything is negotiated until it isn't. Then people die until a new agreement is reached. And Jay Hyan's family? The Kongs. Marcus had traced the red section that covered the most territory. We're old. Older than the Kims. Older than anyone except maybe the Songs. We control the city center, real estate, development, construction, waste management, the legitimate businesses that fund everything else. Everything else being the things we don't talk about in mixed company. Marcus had grinned, but it hadn't reached his eyes. But you're not mixed company anymore, are you? You're going to be family. The word had made Maya's stomach clench. I didn't choose this. No. But you're here, and that means you need to understand the rules. First rule, family is everything. Blood, marriage, adoption, doesn't matter. Once you're in, you're in. The family protects you. The family provides for you. In exchange, you never betray the family, ever. And if you do? Marcus's expression had gone cold. Then you don't have to worry about the other families. Your own will handle it. Handle it how? You really want to know? Maya had thought about it, had realized she did. Yes. People disappear, quietly, permanently. There's no trial, no appeal, just gone. He'd rolled up the map. That's why loyalty matters, why trust matters, why Jay choosing you was such a big deal. He's betting the family's reputation on you, on the idea that you won't betray us, that you'll become one of us. What if I can't? Then we're all in trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen. Why not? Marcus had looked at her seriously. Because you killed a Song enforcer to stay alive. Because you show up for training every morning even though Han's kicking your ass. Because you're still here instead of curled up in a ball crying. You're tougher than you think, Maya. Jay saw that. I see it too. The afternoons were hers. Mostly. Maya had started using them to explore the parts of the house she was allowed in. The library had become her favorite space. 2 stories of books with a ladder on rails and windows that overlooked the gardens. She'd found novels she'd always meant to read, had lost herself in other people's stories because her own had become too much. Jay Hyan had found her there on the 15th day. She'd been curled in a leather chair by the window, deep in a thriller about a woman on the run, when she'd heard footsteps. "You're reading," he'd said. Maya had looked up. He'd been in casual clothes, still expensive, but jeans and a dark sweater instead of a suit. It had made him look younger, almost human. "Is that against the rules?" "No, I'm just surprised." "Why? You think because I'm poor I can't read?" "I think because you're trapped in a house with people trying to train you for a life you didn't choose, most people wouldn't be able to focus on a book." He gestured at the chair across from her. "May I?" Maya had shrugged. He'd sat. They'd been quiet for a while. Maya had tried to keep reading, but the words had stopped making sense with him sitting there. Finally, she'd closed the book. "What do you want?" she'd asked. "To see how you're doing. I'm being held prisoner and trained to kill people. I'm fantastic. Han says you're a fast learner. Han says I telegraph my punches and leave my right side open. He's right, but he also says you don't quit, that you take corrections without arguing, that you're angry enough to be dangerous but controlled enough to learn. From him, that's high praise." Maya had looked out the window at gardens she still wasn't allowed to walk in. "Why are you doing this?" "Training you?" "All of it. You could have chosen anyone, someone who actually wanted this, someone from one of the families who understood the rules. Instead, you picked me, someone who's fighting you every step. Why?" Jay Hyan had been quiet for long enough that Maya had thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because everyone else in that ballroom was performing. They were showing me what they thought I wanted to see, playing roles they'd practiced. But you—" He'd leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You were real, angry and scared and real. In a world where everyone lies, that kind of honesty is rare, valuable. I'm not an asset. I know, you're a person. That's the point." He'd stood. "Dinner's at 7. You should join us tonight." "Us?" "The family. We eat together when we can. It's tradition." "And if I don't want to?" "Then you'll eat alone. But I think you're tired of being alone." He'd walked to the door, paused. "Marcus was right, you know. You're tougher than you think, but you're also more isolated than you need to be. The family isn't perfect, but we take care of our own. You're allowed to let us." He'd left before Maya could respond. She'd sat there, staring at the closed book in her lap, trying to figure out if he'd just offered her kindness or a more subtle cage. Dinner had been overwhelming. The dining room was massive, table that could seat 20, chandelier that could blind someone if they looked directly at it. But only 6 people had been there. Jay Hyan at the head, Marcus to his right, Han across from Marcus, looking uncomfortable in clean clothes. An older woman who'd been introduced as Jay's aunt, Mrs. Lim, a younger guy, maybe early 20s, who'd barely looked up from his phone, and Maya, seated to Jay Hyan's left like she belonged there. The food had been too much. Course after course of things Maya couldn't pronounce. But the conversation had been normal, Marcus telling a story about a deal gone wrong. Han and Mrs. Lim arguing about whether adding garlic to kimchi was traditional or sacrilege. The young guy, Co., apparently Jay's cousin, making sarcastic comments that made everyone laugh. They'd treated Maya like she was already family, asked her opinion on things, included her in jokes, didn't push when she'd stayed quiet. It had been disarming, dangerous, because it had felt good, being part of something, being included. After dinner, Jay Hyan had walked her back to her room. They'd taken the long way through hallways lined with portraits of people who'd died decades ago. "Thank you," Maya had said, "for inviting me." "You don't have to thank me." "I know. I'm doing it anyway." They'd reached her door. Jay Hyan had stopped, hands in his pockets. "Maya, I need to tell you something." The serious tone had put her on edge. "What?" "The other families have requested a meeting, a formal one. They want to see you, verify that you're real, that you're acceptable." Acceptable. The word had tasted bitter. "They need to confirm you're not a liability, that marrying you won't weaken my position. And if they decide I am a liability, they'll demand I choose someone else." Maya's heart had started pounding. "And if you refuse, then we have a problem." He'd met her eyes. I need you to understand what this meeting means. You'll be evaluated, judged, tested in ways that have nothing to do with how fast you can throw a punch. They'll look for weakness, for anything they can use. So what do I do? You be yourself. The woman who told me to my face that I was insane, the woman who killed a song enforcer and didn't break. They're expecting someone fragile, someone I'm protecting out of sentiment. Prove them wrong. When is this meeting? 3 days. 3 days. Maya had nodded slowly. Okay. I'll be ready. Jay Hyan had smiled. A real one, not the knife-edge thing he usually did. I know you will. The next 3 days had been different. Han's training had shifted from technique to presentation. How to stand. How to make eye contact without seeming aggressive or weak. How to shake hands like she meant it. How to control her breathing when she was terrified. You're going to be scared, Han had said. That's fine. Fear keeps you sharp. But you can't show it. These people, they smell weakness like sharks smell blood. You show them fear and they'll tear you apart just to see what you're made of. Comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to keep you alive. Marcus had worked on her knowledge. Names, faces, family hierarchies. Who was allied with whom? Who had old grudges? Who was ambitious enough to cause trouble? The songs will be the problem, Marcus had said, showing her photographs. Especially after you killed Min Seo. His brother Taewon will be there. He's going to want blood. What should I do? Don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't show remorse. You defended yourself. You had every right. The second you apologize, you admit weakness. And weak people don't survive in that room. The night before the meeting, Maya couldn't sleep. She'd gotten up around 3 a.m., had wandered the house in bare feet, and pajamas she'd finally started wearing because her old clothes had literally fallen apart. She'd found her way to the library, had been reaching for the light switch when a voice had stopped her. Can't sleep either? She'd spun around. Jay Hyan had been sitting in the dark, in the same chair he'd sat in days ago, staring out the window. You scared me, Maya had said. Sorry. He hadn't sounded sorry. Hadn't moved. Maya had walked over, had sat in the chair across from him. Outside, the gardens were lit with soft lights. Peaceful. Safe. The opposite of how she felt. Are you worried about tomorrow? She'd asked. No. Liar. He'd looked at her then. Even in the dark, she could see the tension in his jaw. I'm worried about what they'll do to you, what they'll say, how they'll try to break you. I'm harder to break than I look. I know, but that doesn't mean I'm not worried. They'd sat in silence for a while. Then Maya had asked the question that had been eating at her. Why does it matter what they think about me? Because in this world, perception is power. If they see you as weak, they'll see me as weak for choosing you. That invites challenge, territory disputes, violence. But if they see you as strong, he'd paused, then they'll think twice. No pressure then, Maya. He'd leaned forward. I need you to hear this. Tomorrow, in that room, there will be people who want you to fail, who want me to look foolish, who see your existence as an opportunity. But there will also be people who are genuinely curious, who want to understand why I chose you, and a very few, who might actually respect you if you show them who you really are. And who am I really? A survivor. Someone who doesn't break when the world tries to crush her. Someone who fights back. Maya had wanted to believe him, had wanted to feel as confident as he sounded, but all she'd felt was terrified. What if I'm not enough? You are. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He'd stood, had crossed to her chair, had crouched in front of her so they were eye level. You've been enough every single day since you walked into that ballroom. Every day you've gotten up and trained, even though your body hurt. Every day you've studied, even though you didn't want to be here. Every day you've survived. That's what tomorrow is. Just one more day of surviving. His certainty had made something in her chest loosen. Just slightly. Just enough to breathe. Okay. Okay? I'll try. That's all I'm asking. He'd stood, offered her his hand. Come on. You need sleep. She'd taken his hand, let him pull her up, and when he'd walked her to her room, she'd realized the gesture felt less like being escorted to a cell and more like being protected. The shift had been subtle but undeniable. The meeting was held in a restaurant Maya had never heard of. They'd driven there in a convoy, 3 black cars, armed guards, the whole production. Maya had worn clothes Mrs. Lim had picked out: black pants, a silk shirt the color of blood, heels that made her 3 inches taller. She'd felt like she was wearing a costume, playing dress-up in someone else's life. The restaurant had been closed to the public. The windows were covered, guards at every door. Inside, a single long table had been set up, chairs on both sides. At the far end, an empty seat, waiting. The families were already there when Maya and Jay Hyan arrived. She'd recognized them from Marcus's photos, but seeing them in person was different. They looked like normal people: business suits, jewelry, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. But there was something else underneath, something cold and calculating that made Maya's skin crawl. Jay Hyan had introduced her. "This is Maya Torres, my chosen bride." The room had gone quiet. Every eye had turned to her, studying, judging, looking for cracks. An older man at the center of the table had spoken first. "Miss Torres, I am Chairman Kim. On behalf of the families, welcome." "Thank you," Maya had said. Her voice had come out steady, strong. Han would have been proud. "Please, sit." Chairman Kim had gestured to the empty chair at the end of the table. "We have questions." Maya had sat. Jay Hyan had remained standing behind her chair, a show of support, or maybe just making sure she didn't bolt. The questions had started simple. Where was she from? What did she do for work? How had she met Jay Hyan? Maya had answered honestly. Poor neighborhood, retail, and whatever job she could find. A modeling competition that wasn't. "You killed Min Seo Song," a man had said. Taewon, based on Marcus's description. His eyes had been flat, dead. "Is that true?" "Yes," Maya had said. "Why?" "He was trying to kidnap me. I defended myself." "With a frying pan." Taewon's voice had dripped contempt. "With what was available. If there'd been a gun nearby, I would have used that instead." Someone had laughed, quickly stifled. Taewon's expression had darkened. "You think killing my brother is funny?" "I think he made a choice, and I made a different one. I'm sorry he's dead, but I'm not sorry I survived." The room had gone very still. Maya had felt Jay Hyan's hand settle on her shoulder. A warning or support, she couldn't tell. Chairman Kim had cleared his throat. "Ms. Torres, you must understand. You are an outsider. You have no family name, no connections, no understanding of our world. Many of us question Mr. Kong's judgment in choosing you. Can you give us a reason to support this union?" Maya had looked around the table, at the faces that saw her as less than, as a problem to be solved. And something had shifted inside her. The fear had burned away, leaving only anger. "No," she'd said. "No?" Chairman Kim had looked surprised. "I can't give you a reason to support this because I don't care if you do." Maya had stood. Jay Hyan's hand had fallen away. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be here. But I am. And I've learned enough about your world in the past 3 weeks to know that what you really want isn't a reason to support me. You want me to beg, to prove I'm desperate for your approval. Well, I'm not." "Ms. Torres," someone had started. "I'm not finished." Maya had looked at Taewon. "Your brother tried to take me against my will. I stopped him. If that makes me a killer, fine. I'm a killer. But I'm also still breathing. How many of you can say you'd do the same in my position?" "You dare." Taewon had started to rise. "Sit down," Chairman Kim had said quietly. Taewon had sat. Maya had turned to face the chairman. "I don't know your rules, I don't know your traditions, but I know this. Jay Hyan chose me. Not because I'm perfect or connected, or because I fit some ideal. He chose me because I don't lie. I don't perform. When I say something, I mean it. And right now, I'm saying that whether you accept me or not, I'm not going anywhere. So you can spend the next 6 weeks trying to make me quit, or you can accept that I'm going to be part of this family and move on." The silence had been deafening. Then Chairman Kim had started laughing. Actually laughing. Deep and genuine. "Well, she has spirit, Kong. I'll give you that." Other heads had nodded. Some reluctantly, some with what might have been respect. Only Tae-wan had looked furious. This is unacceptable. She killed... Your brother broke the rules, Jae Hyan had cut in. His voice had been ice. He attacked someone under my protection in my own home. He got what he deserved. The songs demand nothing. Chairman Kim had stood. Ms. Torres defended herself, as is her right. The matter is closed. He'd looked at Maya. Ms. Torres, you asked if we could accept you. I think the better question is whether you can accept us. Maya had met his gaze. I guess we'll find out. The meeting had ended shortly after, pleasantries exchanged, handshakes given. But the tension had remained, especially from Tae-wan, whose parting look had promised this wasn't over. In the car on the way back, Jae Hyan had been quiet. Maya had stared out the window, adrenaline still making her hands shake. That was stupid, he'd finally said. Which part? All of it, telling them you don't care about their support, challenging Tae-wan, standing up like you were giving a speech. You told me to be myself. I told you to be smart. Maybe being myself and being smart are the same thing. Maya had looked at him. You wanted them to see me as strong. I showed them strong. If that was wrong, it wasn't wrong. He'd smiled. Actually, smiled. It was terrifying and brilliant and exactly what they needed to see. Chairman Kim was ready to vote against us before you opened your mouth. After that speech, he'll support the marriage. Most of them will. Most? Tae-wan won't. Neither will 2 or 3 of the others. But that was always going to happen. You made it closer than I expected. Relief had flooded through Maya. So I didn't mess everything up? No, you did exactly what I hoped you would. He'd taken her hand. The gesture had surprised them both. You stood your ground. You didn't apologize for existing. That's what they respect. Power, certainty, the willingness to fight. Maya had looked at their joined hands, had realized she didn't want to pull away. I was terrified the entire time. I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters. They'd sat like that, hands clasped, quiet, for the rest of the drive. And when they'd pulled up to the house, Maya had realized something had changed between them. The hostility had shifted into something else, something more complicated. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of trust. Either way, she was in trouble. The next 2 weeks had been different. Training had continued, but Maya had started asking more questions. Not just how to throw a punch, but why Han chose certain techniques over others. Not just memorizing names, but understanding the relationships between families. She'd stopped learning to survive and had started learning to belong. Jae Hyan had noticed, had started including her in meetings. Small ones at first, just him and Marcus discussing business deals. Then larger ones with people from other families. Maya had sat and listened and learned how deals were made, how territories were negotiated, how violence was threatened without ever being explicitly mentioned. She'd also started eating with the family every night, had gotten to know Mrs. Lim, who turned out to be sharp as broken glass under her grandmother act, had learned that Seo was studying engineering but would probably never use his degree because family business came first, had discovered that Marcus collected comic books and Han had a daughter he rarely saw because his work kept him here. They'd become real to her, not just guards and handlers, but people, and she'd become real to them. One night, 3 weeks after the family meeting, Maya had been in the library when she'd overheard voices in the hallway. She'd recognized Jae Hyan's, and another, Tae-wan's song. She'd moved closer to the door, not quite eavesdropping, but not listening either. Reconsider, Tae-wan had been saying. She's a liability, untrained, unsuitable. The family's voted. The decision is made. The family's made a mistake, and you're too blinded by whatever this is to see it. What I see, Jae Hyan had said, and his voice had gone cold, is someone who can't accept that his brother died because he made a stupid choice. I'm sorry for your loss, Tae-wan, but Maya stays. Then you've chosen her over your alliance with my family. I've chosen to honor the agreement we all made. If that's a problem for you, take it up with Chairman Kim. There'd been a long pause. Then, this isn't over, Kong. It never is. Footsteps had retreated. Maya had stayed frozen by the door. A moment later, Jae Hyan had pushed it open. He hadn't looked surprised to find her there. You heard, he'd said. Some of it. And I'm causing you problems. You're worth the problems. He'd walked past her, headed for the whiskey decanter by the window, had poured 2 glasses, had handed her one. Taewan's looking for an excuse to break our alliance. You didn't create that situation. You just gave him a convenient target. Convenient? Maya had sipped the whiskey. It had burned going down. That's what I am? That's not what I meant. But it's true. I'm a problem wrapped in a person. Jae Hyan had set down his glass, had turned to face her fully. You want to know what you are? Enlighten me. You're someone who survived when most people would have broken. You're someone who walked into a room full of people who wanted you to fail and told them you didn't care what they thought. You're someone who learns fast and fights hard and doesn't give up. He'd stepped closer. You're not a problem, Maya. You're the best decision I've made in years. The words had hit her like a physical thing. Maya had set down her own glass because her hands had started shaking. You don't mean that? Yes, I do. Jae, I know this started as something you didn't choose. I know you still think about leaving, about going back to your old life. But that life doesn't exist anymore. The second you killed Min Seo, it disappeared. You're here now, part of this. And I need you to know that's not a bad thing. It feels like a bad thing, because you're still fighting it, still trying to hold on to who you were before. He'd reached out, had tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture had been gentle, unexpected. What if you stopped fighting? What if you let yourself become who you're meant to be? And who's that? Someone powerful, someone feared and respected, someone who belongs. Maya had looked up at him, at the man who'd kidnapped her and imprisoned her and somehow, impossibly, become someone she trusted. I don't know if I can be that person. You already are. You just haven't admitted it yet. His hand had still been near her face. Maya had caught it, had held it, had felt the calluses on his palm, and realized he wasn't just a man in suits making decisions. He fought too. Bled too. Was just as trapped in this world as she was. Jae, she'd whispered, I don't know what this is, between us. Neither do I. But I think I'm starting to... The door had burst open. Marcus, out of breath, his face pale. We have a problem. Jae had stepped back immediately. All business. What kind of problem? The songs. They're demanding another competition, a formal challenge. They've got support from 2 other families. Chairman Kim is trying to shut it down, but they're within their rights. Jae had run a hand through his hair. When? 3 days. They're saying if Maya can't prove herself in a fair competition, the marriage is invalid. Maya's stomach had dropped. What kind of competition? Marcus had looked at her with something like pity. Everything. Combat, strategy, intelligence. They're going to throw everything they have at you, and if you fail even one test, they can force Jae to choose someone else. This is Taewan, Jae had said. He's using the rules against us. Can we refuse? Maya had asked. No, the rule is ancient. Any family can challenge the validity of a union if they can show the chosen bride isn't worthy. We have to comply or lose the support of every family. So I have 3 days to prepare for something I don't even understand. Yes. Maya had looked between them, had seen the worry in Marcus's eyes, the tension in Jae's shoulders, had realized this was it, the moment that would define everything. She could try to compete and probably fail, could refuse and watch everything fall apart. Or, then we'd better get started, she'd said. Jae had looked at her. Maya, you said I was powerful, that I belonged. Time to prove it. She'd straightened her shoulders. Tell me what I need to know. And that was how Maya Torres, who'd come to this house as a prisoner, made the choice to stay not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Not because she was trapped, but because she was ready to fight for her place. The real question was whether she'd survive what came next, or whether the families would tear her apart before she ever got the chance to become who she was meant to. The 3 days before the competition blurred into a continuous loop of training, studying, and not sleeping. Maya had thought the previous weeks were brutal. She'd been wrong. Han pushed her harder than ever, drilling scenarios until her muscles screamed and her mind went numb. Marcus threw information at her faster than she could absorb it. Family histories, political allegiances, weaknesses to exploit. Even Mrs. Lim had gotten involved, teaching Maya how to read microexpressions, how to tell when someone was lying, how to use silence as a weapon. Jae Hyan barely left her side. He'd moved his work to whatever room she was in, taking calls while she sparred with Han, reviewing documents while Marcus quizzed her. At night, when everyone else had gone to bed, he'd sit with her in the library and they'd go over everything again. Not because she didn't know it, but because saying it out loud made it real. The combat portion will be hand-to-hand, Jay had explained on the second night. His voice had been rough from exhaustion. They'll put you against someone trained, probably multiple someones. You don't have to win, you just have to survive without giving up. Comforting. The strategy portion is worse. They'll give you a scenario, usually a territorial dispute or a business negotiation gone wrong, and you'll have to solve it. They're looking for how you think, whether you're willing to make hard choices. What kind of hard choices? Jay had looked at her for a long moment. The kind where people die and you have to decide who. Maya's stomach had clenched. And if I choose wrong? There's no wrong answer, just revealing ones. They want to see if you'll protect the family over everything else. If you'll sacrifice strangers to save us. If you understand that in this world, loyalty is the only thing that matters. What if I don't want to sacrifice anyone? Then they'll know you're not ready, and they'll use it against me. The weight of that had settled on Maya's shoulders like concrete. Everything she did in this competition wouldn't just affect her. It would affect Jay, the family, their position, their safety. One wrong move and she wouldn't just fail, she'd destroy everything. I can't do this, she'd whispered. Yes, you can. Jay, I'm just some girl who couldn't pay her rent. I'm not built for this. He'd taken her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You killed a man to stay alive. You stood in front of the families and told them you didn't need their approval. You've survived everything I've thrown at you. Stop telling yourself you're not enough. You're exactly what we need. What if you're wrong? I'm not. He'd pressed his forehead to hers. The gesture had been intimate, desperate. But even if I am, I'd rather go down fighting with you than win with someone else. Do you understand? You're not just my choice for the competition. You're my choice. Period. Maya had closed her eyes, breathing him in. Somewhere in the past month, he'd stopped being her captor and had become something else. Something she didn't have words for yet. I'm scared. Good. So am I. You don't look scared. That's because I've had years of practice hiding it, but I am. Terrified. Because if they hurt you tomorrow, I won't be able to stop them. The rules are clear. Once the competition starts, I can't interfere. You'll be alone out there. I've been alone before. Not like this. He'd pulled back to look at her. Promise me something. What? Don't hold back. Whatever they throw at you, don't try to be nice or fair or the person you were before you came here. Be ruthless. Be the woman who survived. Because that's the only version of you that's going to make it through tomorrow. Maya had nodded, had tried to believe him, had failed. The competition was held in a warehouse on the edge of Kong territory. Maya had expected something formal, a building, an arena, something that matched the gravity of what was happening. Instead, it was concrete floors and metal beams and the smell of rust and old blood. Chairs had been set up along one wall for the families to watch. The rest of the space was empty except for a few pieces of equipment Maya couldn't identify. She'd worn clothes Han had picked out. Flexible pants, a fitted shirt, boots with good traction. Her hair was pulled back tight enough to hurt. No jewelry. Nothing that could be grabbed or used against her. The families were already there when Maya and Jay Hyan arrived. All of them. Chairman Kim in the center, flanked by representatives from the other families. Taewon Song sat to the left, his expression carved from ice. Others Maya recognized from photos but had never met. 20 people, maybe more, all there to watch her fail or succeed. Miss Torres, Chairman Kim stood. Are you prepared? Yes, Maya said. Her voice didn't shake. Small victory. The competition will consist of 3 tests. Combat, strategy, loyalty. You must pass all 3 to be deemed acceptable. If you fail even one, Mr. Kong's choice will be invalidated, and he will be required to select a new bride from approved candidates within 30 days. Do you understand? I understand. Do you accept these terms? Maya looked at Jay Hyan. He nodded once. She turned back to Chairman Kim. I accept. Then we begin. He gestured to the center of the space. Combat first. You will face an opponent of our choosing. The fight ends when one of you can no longer continue or yields. There are no other rules. A door on the far side of the warehouse opened. A woman walked out. She was taller than Maya by half a foot, broader through the shoulders, and moved like violence was her first language. Scars on her knuckles, cold eyes that assessed Maya and found her lacking. "This is Jin," Chairman Kim said. "She has trained with the Kim family for 15 years. She will be your opponent." Maya's mouth went dry. 15 years. She'd had 3 weeks. This wasn't a test. It was an execution. Jin stepped into the center of the space. Maya followed. They faced each other across 10 feet of concrete. Jin didn't look nervous, didn't look excited, just looked ready. "Begin," Chairman Kim said. Jin moved first. Fast. Impossibly fast. A strike aimed at Maya's throat that Maya barely blocked. The impact sent pain shooting up her arm. She'd blocked wrong, left herself open. Jin's follow-up caught her in the ribs. Maya staggered back, gasping. "Focus!" Han's voice called from somewhere behind her. "Watch her shoulders." Maya watched, saw Jin's right shoulder dip a fraction of a second before she moved, managed to dodge the next strike, and the next. But dodging wasn't winning. It was just delaying. Jin swept her leg. Maya went down hard, the concrete punishing, rolled just in time to avoid a boot to the face, scrambled to her feet. Her ribs were screaming. She could taste blood where she'd bitten her tongue. "You're faster than you look," Jin said. It was the first time she'd spoken. Her voice was flat, uninterested. "But you're not good enough." She attacked again. A combination Maya recognized from training: jab, cross, hook. Maya blocked the first 2, but the hook caught her temple. The world went white. She felt herself falling and couldn't stop it. The concrete was cold against her cheek. Her ears were ringing. She could hear voices but couldn't make out words. Someone was counting. 5, 6, 7. "Get up!" something in her brain screamed. "Get up or it's over!" Maya pushed herself to her hands and knees at 8, made it to her feet at 9, swaying. Jin was waiting. "You should stay down." "Probably," Maya said. Blood dripped from her mouth. "But I'm stubborn." Jin almost smiled, then she attacked again. This time Maya was ready. She'd been watching, learning. Jin favored her right side, dropped her guard for a fraction of a second after she threw a combination. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maya dodged, waited, and when Jin dropped her guard, Maya struck. Not hard enough to do real damage, but hard enough to surprise. Jin's head snapped back. She blinked. "Better," Jin said. They circled each other. Maya's entire body hurt. Her vision kept going spotty, but she stayed on her feet, blocked what she could, took hits when she couldn't, kept moving, kept fighting. It felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Jin landed more hits than Maya could count. Maya got in maybe 5 good strikes, but she didn't go down again. Didn't yield, just kept standing until her legs were shaking and her lungs were burning, and the world had narrowed to just this: pain and movement, and refusing to quit. "Enough," Chairman Kim finally said. Jin stepped back immediately. Maya nearly fell without an opponent to focus on. Hands caught her, Jae Hyan's hands, keeping her upright. "You did good," he murmured. "You did so good." Maya couldn't answer, couldn't do anything but breathe and try not to vomit. Chairman Kim consulted with the other families. Quiet conversations Maya couldn't hear. Finally, he turned back. "The combat test is passed. Ms. Torres showed adequate skill and excellent resilience. We proceed to strategy." Maya was given 10 minutes to recover. Someone brought water. Someone else brought ice for her face. Mrs. Lim appeared with a first aid kit and cleaned the cut on Maya's eyebrow with hands that were surprisingly gentle. "You're doing well," Mrs. Lim whispered. "Better than most expected." "That's a low bar," Maya managed. "Perhaps, but you've cleared it. 2 more to go." The strategy test was worse than the combat. They presented Maya with a scenario: a territorial dispute between the Kong family and the Parks. The Parks claimed the Kongs had violated an old agreement by developing a property that had been designated neutral ground. They were demanding either compensation or territory in exchange. They had support from 2 other families. "How do you resolve this?" Chairman Kim asked. Maya's brain felt like it was moving through mud. Her head was pounding. Her ribs made breathing painful, but she forced herself to think. "What proof do the Parks have of the original agreement?" she asked. Documents signed 30 years ago by both families. And what proof do we have that the property was neutral? None. The agreement was verbal on our side. A trap. They'd given her a scenario with no good answer. Maya closed her eyes, thought about everything Marcus had taught her, thought about how these families operated, thought about what Jay would do. I'd verify the documents first, she said slowly. 30 years is a long time. Documents can be forged. If they're authentic, I'd look at what the parks actually want. They're claiming territory or compensation, but what they really want is leverage. They want something else, and they're using this as an opening. Assume the documents are authentic, Chairman Kim said, and the parks want the territory they're claiming, a section of waterfront property worth approximately $50 million. What do? Maya thought. $50 million was significant. Giving it up would make the Kongs look weak, but fighting would start a war that could cost more than money. I'd give them the property, Maya said. The room went silent. She could feel everyone staring. Explain, Chairman Kim said, because territory isn't just land. It's what you can do with it. If I give them waterfront property, I'd make sure they know it came with conditions. Development rights that require Kong approval, usage restrictions that favor our businesses. I'd give them the land but keep the power. They get to save face. We get to maintain control. Nobody has to die. More silence. Then Chairman Kim smiled. And if they refuse these conditions, then they never really wanted the property. They wanted conflict. And that tells me something useful about their intentions. It means they're planning something bigger, and this was just a test. In which case, I'd give them nothing and prepare for war. Chairman Kim looked at the other families. Conversations happened. Finally, he nodded. The strategy test is passed. Ms. Torres understands the difference between the appearance of power and actual power. We proceed to the final test. The final test. Loyalty. Maya's stomach clenched. She looked at Jay Hyan. His face was carefully blank, but she could see the tension in his jaw. The test of loyalty is simple, Chairman Kim said. We will ask you questions. You will answer truthfully. If we determine you are lying, you fail. What kind of questions? Maya asked. The kind that reveal where your true allegiances lie. He folded his hands. First question. If you had to choose between saving Jay Hyan Kong's life or saving the life of an innocent stranger, which would you choose? Maya's heart hammered. This was it. The trap. The question designed to prove she wasn't ruthless enough. If she said the stranger, she'd fail for not being loyal. If she said Jay, she'd reveal she was willing to sacrifice innocence. Either way, she lost. Unless. I'd choose Jay, Maya said clearly. Every time, without hesitation. Even though the stranger is innocent? Yes, because Jay is my family. And in this world, family is everything. The stranger might be innocent, but they're not mine to protect. Jay is. And I will always choose the people who are mine. Chairman Kim's expression didn't change. Second question. If the Kong family ordered you to do something you found morally reprehensible, say, kill a child, would you do it? Ice flooded Maya's veins. She looked at Jay Hyan. He gave the smallest shake of his head. A warning. Or permission. She wasn't sure. No, Maya said. I wouldn't. Even though it means disobeying the family? Even then. Because a family that would order that isn't a family I want to be part of. And I'd rather die than become someone who could do that and live with herself after. Taewon Song laughed, sharp, mocking. See? She's weak. She admits she'd defy the family. She's honest, Chairman Kim cut him off, which is what this test measures. Not blind obedience. Honest loyalty. He looked at Maya. Final question, Ms. Torres. Why do you want to marry Jay Hyan Kong? The question hung in the air. Maya felt every eye on her. This was it. The moment that would define everything. She could lie. Could say something about security or protection or strategic alliance. Could give them what they expected. But she'd just said she wouldn't lie. And she meant it. I don't know if I want to marry him, Maya said quietly. I didn't choose this. Didn't choose any of this. But I choose to be here now. I choose to fight for my place in this family. I choose Jay because he sees me as a person instead of an asset, because he gave me the tools to survive instead of just expecting me to break. Because when I was terrified and alone, he stood beside me. She paused. I don't love him. I don't even know if I like him most days, but I respect him and I trust him. And in this world, that might be worth more than love. The silence stretched. Maya couldn't read the faces watching her, couldn't tell if she'd just saved herself or destroyed everything. Then Chairman Kim stood. The families will deliberate. They left, all of them filing through a door at the back of the warehouse, leaving Maya and Jay and the handful of Kong family members who'd come to watch. The door closed. The silence was crushing. Did I just fail? Maya whispered. I don't know, Jay said. He sounded shaken. I've never heard anyone answer like that before. Should I have lied? No, you did exactly right. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight enough that her ribs protested. You were perfect. No matter what they decide, you were perfect. The families deliberated for 40 minutes. Maya spent it pacing, drinking water she couldn't taste, trying not to think about what came next if they voted against her. Jay would have to choose someone else, someone approved, someone who fit. Maya would be sent away. Back to her old life. Except she couldn't go back. That life didn't exist anymore. She'd killed someone. Knew too much. She'd be a loose end. Loose ends didn't survive in this world. When the families finally returned, Chairman Kim's expression was unreadable. He took his seat. The others arranged themselves around him. We have reached a decision, he said. The combat test was passed with distinction. The strategy test showed promising insight. The loyalty test... He paused. The loyalty test revealed exactly what we needed to know. Ms. Torres, you have been deemed acceptable. The marriage will proceed as planned. Relief hit Maya so hard her knees nearly buckled. Jay caught her, held her up. However, Chairman Kim continued, and Maya's relief evaporated. There is one final matter to address before this is official. You have not yet met the head of the Kong family, Jay Hyan's father. As is traditional, the bride must be presented to the family patriarch for his approval. A dinner has been arranged for this evening. You will attend. If he approves, the matter is settled. If not, Chairman Kim shrugged. Then we begin again. Jay's entire body went rigid. That wasn't part of the agreement. It is tradition. Surely you don't object to honoring tradition. My father has no say in this decision. He gave up that right when he stepped back from active leadership. Stepped back, not stepped down. He is still the head of your family, still deserving of respect. Or do you argue otherwise? Maya could feel the trap closing, could see it in the way the other families watched. This wasn't about tradition. This was about power, about reminding Jay that he wasn't fully in control yet, that his father still had influence. Fine, Jay said through clenched teeth. We'll attend the dinner, but this is the last condition. After tonight, the matter is closed. Agreed, Chairman Kim said. The dinner is at 8. Don't be late. They left. All of them. The warehouse emptied until it was just the Kong family remaining. Jay still had his arm around Maya. She could feel him shaking. Jay, she said quietly. What's wrong? Why are you us? My father. He cut her off. His voice was hollow. You don't understand. Meeting him isn't just a formality. It's... He stopped, seemed to be fighting for words. There are things about my family you don't know. Things I haven't told you about how we built our position, about what my father is capable of. Then tell me now. I can't, not here, not... He looked around the warehouse like the walls had ears. Come on. We need to go home. We need to prepare. You need to understand what you're walking into tonight. They drove back in silence. Maya's body hurt from the fight with Jin, but it was nothing compared to the dread building in her chest. Jay's reaction had terrified her more than anything in the competition. She'd seen him face down other families without flinching, had watched him negotiate million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But mention his father, and he looked like he was about to shatter. At the house, Jay took her to his study, a room she'd never been in before. Dark wood, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with volumes that looked ancient. He locked the door behind them. Tell me, Maya said. Whatever it is, I need to know. Jay poured himself a drink, downed it, poured another. My father built this empire on blood. Everyone's family has blood in their history, but my father... He stopped. He was ruthless in ways that made other families uncomfortable, efficient, cold. He eliminated threats before they could become problems. Entire rival families disappeared under his leadership. Not just the men, everyone, wives, children, anyone who could grow up seeking revenge. Maya's stomach turned. Jay, I know. I know how it sounds. I'm not defending it. I'm explaining it. My father believes that mercy is weakness, that showing compassion invites betrayal. He raised me to think the same way, to be hard, uncompromising, to never let emotion cloud judgment. Jay looked at her. I've tried to be different, tried to find a balance between his methods and something more human, but he sees that as failure, sees me as soft. You're not soft. To him, choosing you is proof that I am. You're not from a family, not strategic, not someone who strengthens our position. In his eyes, I chose you because I'm weak, because I let emotion override logic. Did you? The question hung between them. Jay set down his glass. I don't know anymore. I told myself I chose you because you were honest, because you'd be an asset. But the truth is, he crossed to her, took her hands. The truth is I chose you because when I look at you, I see someone who survived everything and still has humanity left. Because you make me want to be better than what my father raised me to be. And that terrifies me because it means he was right. I am weak when it comes to you. Maya's throat tightened. Jay. Tonight, when you meet him, he's going to test you, push you, look for any sign of weakness. And if he finds it, he'll use it, not just to reject you, but to undermine my position, to prove to the other families that I'm not fit to lead. So what do? You survive, like you always do. You be strong and cold, and you don't show fear. You be the woman who stood in front of the families and told them you didn't need their approval. He cupped her face. But most importantly, you don't tell him the truth. Don't admit you don't love me. Don't admit you're here because you had no choice. He'll smell that weakness and he'll destroy us both. So I lie. You perform. Like everyone else in this world. You show him what he wants to see, a bride who will strengthen the family, who will be an asset, who chose this life willingly. Maya nodded, tried to ignore the sick feeling in her stomach. I can do that. I know you can, but Maya, he pulled her close. I'm sorry for all of this. For every choice that led to you having to walk into a room with my father and pretend to be something you're not. You deserved better than this. Maybe, Maya said, but this is what I've got, so I'll make it work. The restaurant was in a part of the city Maya had never seen. Old buildings, narrow streets, the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone and strangers were noticed. The car pulled up to a building with no sign, just a red door and a man in a suit standing guard. This is it, Jay said. His voice was tight. Remember everything I told you. Don't show fear. Don't volunteer information. Answer questions directly and simply. And whatever you do, don't tell the truth. I know. Maya straightened her shoulders. She was wearing a dress Mrs. Lim had picked out. Dark blue, elegant, expensive. Her hair was down. Makeup carefully applied to hide the bruises from the fight. She looked like she belonged in this world, even if she didn't feel like it. They entered together. The restaurant was small, a dozen tables, all empty except one in the back. A private dining room with rice paper walls and soft lighting. The man sitting alone at the table looked up when they entered. Maya's breath stopped. She knew him, not from photos, not from descriptions. She knew him, knew his face, knew his voice, knew the exact shape of his jaw and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Because she'd seen him before, 6 years ago, in her parents' apartment, standing over their bodies while two men with guns waited for orders. She'd been hiding in the closet, had been supposed to be at work but had come home sick, had heard the shouting and had hidden instead of running, had watched through the crack in the door as this man, this exact man, had looked down at her parents' bodies and had said, "Clean this up. Make it look like a robbery. No loose ends." No loose ends. The world tilted. Maya grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. Jay was saying something, but she couldn't hear him over the roaring in her ears. "Father," Jay was saying, "this is Maya Torres, my chosen bride." The man stood, smiled, extended his hand. "Ms. Torres, I've heard so much about you. I'm Hong Jin Kong. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Maya stared at the hand. At the man who'd ordered her parents killed, who destroyed her life, who'd created the circumstances that had left her desperate enough to answer that email. That had brought her here. To this moment. To him. This was Jay's father, the man she was supposed to impress, to win over, to prove herself worthy to. The man who'd murdered her family. Maya's vision went white at the edges. Her hands started shaking. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, to attack, to do something other than stand there and pretend she didn't recognize him. But she couldn't move, couldn't speak, could only stare at Hong Jin Kong's outstretched hand while her entire world collapsed for the second time in 6 years. Maya, Jay's voice, concerned. Are you all right? She wasn't all right. Would never be all right again. Because she'd just realized the truth. The horrible, devastating truth that changed everything. She'd fallen for the son of the man who'd killed her parents, had started to trust him, to believe in him, to think she could build a life in this world, and it was all built on blood, her family's blood. Hong Jin Kong was still smiling, still waiting for her to shake his hand. Ms. Torres, is something wrong? Maya looked at Jay, at the man who'd chosen her, protected her, trained her, made her believe she could belong, and saw only his father's eyes staring back, the same cold calculation, the same ruthless efficiency, the same willingness to do whatever it took to maintain power. No loose ends. That's all her parents had been. Loose ends. And that's all she was, too. She just hadn't seen it yet. Maya opened her mouth to speak and found she couldn't. The words stuck in her throat. Because what could she say? How could she sit at this table and have dinner with her parents' murderer while pretending everything was fine? She couldn't, but if she didn't, she'd destroy Jay, would invalidate everything, would fail the final test. And then what? Where would she go? What would she do? The silence stretched. Hong Jin's smile was starting to fade. Jay's hand was on her arm now, his grip tight with worry. I'm sorry, Maya finally managed. Her voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere far away. I'm not feeling well. I need air. She pulled away from Jay, walked toward the door on legs that didn't feel attached to her body. Behind her, she heard Jay apologizing to his father, heard Hong Jin's voice saying something about nerves, heard footsteps following her. Maya burst out into the street. The night air hit her face, but it didn't help. Couldn't help. Because there was no air cold enough to freeze the truth burning through her veins. Everything was a lie. Her place in the family, her relationship with Jay, her belief that she could survive in this world. All of it built on the foundation of her parents' murder. And she'd walked right into it, had let herself be seduced by luxury and protection and the promise of belonging. Had started to care about the man whose father had destroyed everything. Maya made it 3 steps before her legs gave out. She collapsed against a brick wall, gasping for air that wouldn't come, her vision going dark at the edges. Hands caught her, Jay's hands. Maya, talk to me. What's wrong? What happened? She looked up at him, at the concern in his eyes, the genuine worry, and realized he didn't know, had no idea what his father had done, what this family had taken from her, which meant she had a choice. Tell him the truth and watch everything burn. Or bury it, swallow the pain, play the role, survive, just like she'd been doing her whole life. Maya closed her eyes, felt tears she hadn't cried in years finally break free, and made the only choice that would keep her alive. I'm fine, she whispered. Just give me a minute, I'll be fine. But she wasn't fine, and she never would be again. Maya couldn't breathe. The brick wall was rough against her back, and her lungs wouldn't work properly, and Jay was saying something, but the words weren't reaching her brain. All she could see was Hong Jin Kong's face, the way he'd smiled at her, the same smile he'd worn 6 years ago standing over her parents' bodies. Maya! Jay's hands on her shoulders, firm, grounding. Look at me. Whatever just happened, we can fix it. Just tell me what's wrong. She forced herself to focus on his face, saw worry there, genuine concern. He didn't know. Had no idea his father was a murderer. Or maybe he did know and didn't care because in this world murder was just business. The thought made bile rise in her throat. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? Any of it. The dinner, your father. I can't. Her voice cracked. Jay, I need to leave right now. I need to go. You're not making sense. His grip tightened. Talk to me. What happened in there? You saw my father and you looked like you'd seen a ghost. Close enough. Maya laughed. It came out broken. I'm fine. I just need air. You're not fine. You're shaking, and you're lying to me. His eyes searched hers. We promised each other honesty, remember? No performances, no games, just truth. So tell me the truth right now. What happened? The truth. Maya almost laughed again. The truth was that she'd spent the last month falling for a man whose family had destroyed hers. The truth was that every moment of safety she'd felt here had been built on blood. Her family's blood. The truth was that she was trapped between revenge and survival and didn't know which one would kill her faster. But she couldn't say any of that. Because saying it meant destroying everything, meant putting Jay in an impossible position, meant starting a war she couldn't win. I recognized him, Maya said. The words came out flat, dead. Your father. I've seen him before. Jay went very still. Where? 6 years ago, in my parents' apartment. She watched his face for a reaction, saw nothing but careful blankness. He was there when they died. The silence stretched. A car passed on the street. Someone laughed in a nearby building. Normal sounds in a world that had just shattered. Explain, Jay said quietly. I came home early from work. I was sick. Heard shouting. Hid in the closet instead of running like I should have. The memory was sharp enough to cut. I watched through the crack in the door, 2 men with guns, my parents on the floor, and your father standing over them telling someone to clean it up. Make it look like a robbery, no loose ends. Jay's hands dropped from her shoulders. He stepped back. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes had gone cold. You're sure it was him? He said. I'm sure. 6 years ago. Yes. And you're just telling me this now? The accusation in his tone made Maya's temper flare. I just recognized him tonight. I was 18 and terrified, and I've spent 6 years trying to forget that day. I didn't connect the faces until I walked into that room and saw him. Jay ran a hand through his hair, turned away from her, stared at nothing. This changes everything. I know. No, you don't. He spun back. My father killed your parents. You're about to marry into his family, into the family that destroyed yours. Do you understand what that means? It means I'm an idiot for not running the second I recognized him. It means you have grounds for blood revenge. It means if this gets out, the other families will expect you to demand justice. Or they'll think you're weak, a coward, someone who values comfort over honor. His voice had gone hard, clinical. It means you've just become a massive liability. To me, to the family, to everything we've built. The words hit like physical blows. Maya had expected shock. Maybe horror, not this cold calculation. Is that all you care about? How this affects your position? Right now? Yes. Because if you can't handle this, if you fall apart or demand revenge or do anything that makes the families question your loyalty, we're both dead. Do you understand? My father won't let you live knowing what you know. The families won't accept a bride seeking blood revenge. We have minutes to figure out how to survive this, and you're standing here acting like I'm the villain. You're defending him. I'm trying to keep us alive. Jay's voice had risen. People were probably watching from windows. He didn't seem to care. I'm not defending what he did. I'm telling you the reality of our situation. Your parents are dead. Nothing changes that. But if you want revenge, if you want justice, if you want anything other than to end up as dead as they are, you need to think strategically. Maya's hands had curled into fists. Don't tell me how to think about my parents' murder. Then don't stand there acting like you have options. You don't. We don't. He closed the distance between them. I know you're hurting. I know this is the worst possible thing that could have happened. But we are in the middle of the street outside a restaurant where my father is waiting for us to come back and pretend everything is fine. So you need to make a choice right now. Walk back in there and survive. Or walk away and die. Those are your options. Some choice. It's the only one you've got. Maya wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to do anything other than accept that he was right. But he was. She could feel it in her bones. Walking away meant death. Going back meant living with the man who'd killed her parents. Pretending. Performing. Burying the truth so deep it would poison her from the inside. I can't do it, she whispered. Jay, I can't sit at that table and smile at him and Yes, you can. Because you're strong enough. Because you've survived worse than this. I haven't. You have. You survived your parents' death, survived living alone, survived being kidnapped and forced into this world, survived killing someone. You are the strongest person I've ever met, and you will survive this too. His hands were back on her shoulders, steady, anchoring. I know what I'm asking. I know it's impossible, but I need you to do it anyway. Please. The please broke something in her. Maya closed her eyes, felt tears she'd been holding back finally fall. I hate you. I know. I hate your father. I hate this family. I hate everything about this world. I know that too. But I don't want to die. Then live. He pulled her close, held her while she shook. Live, and we'll figure out the rest later. But first you have to survive tonight. Maya had never felt smaller, never felt more trapped. But she also knew he was right. She'd come too far to give up now, had fought too hard, survived too much. She could survive this too, even if it killed her. They went back inside. Hong Jin was still at the table, sipping tea like he hadn't just destroyed Maya's entire world without knowing it. He looked up when they entered, and his expression shifted to concern. Ms. Torres, are you feeling better? Maya forced herself to smile, to move toward the table, to sit in the chair Jay pulled out for her. Yes. I'm sorry. I think the stress of the competition caught up with me. Understandable. I heard you performed admirably. Hong Jin poured her tea. His hands were steady, practiced. The hands of a man who'd done terrible things and slept fine afterward. Jin is one of our best fighters. Lasting as long as you did is impressive. Thank you. The words tasted like ash. Dinner arrived. Course after course of food Maya couldn't taste. She ate mechanically, answered questions about her background with lies that came easier than they should have, smiled when appropriate, laughed at Hong Jin's stories about Jay as a child, played the role of devoted bride-to-be with a precision that would have made her parents proud. The thought of her parents made her stomach clench. She reached for her water glass, took a slow sip, reminded herself to breathe. Hong Jin was watching her, studying. You seem tense, Ms. Torres. It's been a long day. I imagine so, but you'll have to get used to long days. Being part of this family requires stamina, dedication, the ability to do difficult things without complaint. He set down his chopsticks. Jay tells me you've adapted remarkably well to our world, that you've shown promise. But I have concerns. Here it comes, Maya thought, the test, the trap. What kind of concerns? She asked. You're an outsider. You have no family, no connections, no understanding of our history or our obligations. Some might say choosing you was an act of sentiment rather than strategy. His gaze was sharp, cutting. I need to know that my son didn't choose you because he's weak, that you're not a liability disguised as an asset. Jay started to speak. Hong Jin held up a hand. Let her answer. Maya met Hong Jin's eyes, saw nothing there but cold calculation, the same calculation that had decided her parents were expendable, that had turned her life into rubble, that had created the circumstances that brought her here. And something in her chest hardened into steel. You want to know if I'm weak, Maya said quietly. If I'll break under pressure. If I'm worth the risk Jay took choosing me. Yes. Then let me tell you what I am. She set down her own chopsticks. I'm someone who watched her parents die and survived. Someone who lived alone at 18 with no money and no family and made it work. Someone who got kidnapped and thrown into a world she didn't understand and learned to fight back. I've killed a man, passed your family's tests, stood in front of people who wanted me to fail and proved them wrong. She leaned forward. I'm not weak, Mr. Kong. I'm a survivor. And survivors do whatever it takes to keep living, even when it costs them everything. Hong Jin was very still. Then he smiled. Well said, but words are easy. Actions reveal truth, so let me ask you something more direct. He pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. Do you know this man? Maya's blood turned to ice. The photograph showed a man in his 40s, balding, glasses, completely ordinary except for one thing. She knew him, had seen him at her parents' apartment, one of the men with guns. No, Maya said. Her voice didn't shake. Should I? His name is Chen. He works for me. Has for 20 years. Loyal, efficient, valuable. Hongjin put the phone away. 3 days ago, he came to me with an interesting story. He said he'd seen you before, 6 years ago. Said you looked familiar, and he couldn't place why until recently. The room had gone very quiet. Jay's hand had found hers under the table. His grip was tight enough to hurt. I don't know what you mean, Maya said. Don't you? Hongjin leaned back. Chen was part of a team I sent to handle a problem. A man who'd stolen from me, embezzled funds, thought I wouldn't notice. The man's name was Daniel Torres. Your father. The world stopped spinning. Maya couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but sit there while Hongjin dismantled her entire existence. Your father worked for me, Hongjin continued. Low-level accounting, nothing important, but he got greedy, took money that wasn't his, nearly $200,000 over the course of 3 years. When I discovered the theft, I sent people to recover what was taken and ensure it didn't happen again. He tilted his head. Chen says there was a girl hiding in the closet. He wanted to check. I told him to leave it. No witnesses meant no complications. But apparently there was a witness after all. Jay's hand had gone rigid in hers. Maya could feel him looking at her, but she couldn't look back. Couldn't see the horror in his eyes when he realized what this meant. So you see my concern, Hongjin said. My son wants to marry the daughter of a thief I had killed, a daughter who witnessed that killing, a daughter who has every reason to want revenge. He folded his hands. Tell me, Ms. Torres, why should I allow this marriage? Why should I trust that you won't put a knife in my back the first chance you get? Maya's mind was racing. Her father had stolen from Hongjin. That's why he'd been killed. Not random. Not wrong place, wrong time. Her father had been a thief and he'd been executed for it, and she'd spent 6 years blaming fate when really she should have been blaming him. The revelation was almost as devastating as the murder itself. I didn't know, Maya said. Her voice sounded hollow. About the theft. About any of it. I thought my parents were killed in a robbery. That's what the police said. That's what I believed. And now that you know the truth? Maya stopped, swallowed. Now I understand that my father made a choice, and that choice had consequences. For him, for my mother, for me. So you don't blame me. The question was a trap. Maya could feel it. She looked at Hongjin, really looked, and saw a man who'd killed countless people, who'd destroyed families, who saw human life as a balance sheet where some people were assets and others were acceptable losses. Her parents had been acceptable losses, and she was supposed to say that was fine, that she understood, that she forgave. I blame my father, Maya said carefully, for stealing, for putting us in danger, for making choices that got him killed. What you did was business. What he did was stupid. I can't change either of those things. All I can do is choose how to move forward. And how do you choose to move forward? By surviving, by being smarter than my father was, by understanding that this world has rules and breaking them has consequences. She met his eyes. By proving that I'm not my father's daughter, that I'm loyal, that I can be trusted. Words again, Hongjin said, but he sounded almost approving. But I think I'm beginning to understand why my son chose you. You're pragmatic, willing to set aside emotion for survival. That's valuable. He stood. The marriage has my approval. Welcome to the family, Ms. Torres. He left. Just like that. Walked out of the restaurant with his guards following. Left Maya and Jay sitting at a table covered in food neither of them could eat. The silence was crushing. Your father was a thief, Jay finally said. His voice was flat, emotionless. Apparently. You didn't know. No. But now you do. And you told my father you understand, that you blame your father instead of him, that you're not seeking revenge. Yes. Were you lying? Maya looked at him, really looked, saw the man she'd started to trust, started to care about, started to believe might actually see her as a person instead of a piece on a board. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know what I feel right now except numb. Jay nodded slowly. We should go. They drove home in silence. Maya stared out the window and tried to process what had just happened. Her father had been a criminal, a thief. Everything she'd believed about her parents' death had been a lie. They hadn't been innocent victims. They'd been casualties of a war her father had started by stealing. Did that make it better or worse? She couldn't decide. At the house, Jay walked her to her room, stopped outside the door. "I need to know," he said quietly. "Are you going to try to kill my father?" "I don't know." "That's not a good enough answer." "It's the only one I have." Maya was too tired to lie, too broken to perform. "Ask me tomorrow, or next week, or never. But right now, I don't know anything except that I want to sleep and not think about any of this." "Maya, please," she looked at him. "Just let me have tonight. Tomorrow you can worry about whether I'm a threat. Tonight, just let me be a person who's been through too much." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. Tonight, you get to fall apart. Tomorrow, we deal with reality." He left. Maya went into her room, locked the door, stood in the middle of the floor, and tried to figure out what to do with all the emotions tearing through her. Grief for parents who weren't who she thought they were. Rage at her father for being stupid enough to steal from Hong Jin Kong. Horror at herself for sitting at that table and pretending everything was fine. And underneath it all, a growing certainty that she couldn't keep doing this, couldn't keep burying the truth, couldn't keep surviving at the cost of her soul. Something had to give. Maya made it to the bathroom before she started screaming. Quiet at first, then louder. Then loud enough that she had to shove a towel in her mouth to muffle the sound. She screamed until her throat was raw, until her voice gave out, until the rage burned itself out and left only emptiness. Then she sat on the cold tile floor and cried. For her parents. For herself. For the girl she'd been before all of this. For the woman she was becoming. For every choice that had led her to this moment. She cried until there were no tears left. Until she was hollow. Until the numbness returned and settled over her like armor. Then she stood up, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. That was fine. She didn't want to be that person anymore anyway. The girl who'd walked into that ballroom 6 weeks ago was gone. The girl who'd believed the world was fair, who'd thought surviving meant keeping your head down and your hands clean, who'd trusted that good things happen to good people. That girl was dead. What had taken her place was something harder, sharper, more dangerous, something that understood the rules of this world, that knew survival sometimes meant compromising everything you'd once believed in, that had killed and would kill again if necessary, something that could sit at a table with her parents' murderer and smile. Maya didn't know if she hated this new version of herself or was grateful for it. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe it didn't matter because this was who she had to be to survive. She went to bed, didn't sleep, stared at the ceiling and made plans. Morning came too bright. Someone knocked at dawn. Maya opened the door to find Marcus standing there with coffee and a worried expression. "Hey," he said. "Jay told me about last night. How you're holding up?" "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." "I'm getting better." Maya took the coffee, sipped it, tasted nothing. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I want to make sure you're okay, and to tell you that whatever you're planning, you should think twice." "I'm not planning anything." "Also a lie. You've got that look, like you're 3 steps ahead and none of them are good." He leaned against the doorframe. "Look, I get it. Finding out Hong Jin killed your parents, that's beyond messed up. But if you go after him, if you try anything, it won't end well, for anyone." "I know. Do you?" "Because Hong Jin has survived 40 years in this world by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. He's eliminated entire families, crushed rebellions, outlasted rivals. You're smart and tough, but you're not ready for him." "Then I'll get ready." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You really want revenge that bad?" "I want justice. Same thing in this world, and both will get you killed." He pushed off the doorframe. "I like you, Maya. You're good for Jay, good for the family. Don't throw that away chasing ghosts. They're not ghosts. They're my parents, who are dead and buried. Revenge won't bring them back. It'll just create more bodies, including yours." He left before Maya could respond. She finished the coffee, got dressed, Went to find Han in the training room because hitting something sounded better than thinking. Han took one look at her and pointed at the heavy bag. Go, hard as you want. I'll tell you when to stop. Maya hit the bag until her knuckles split, until her arms were shaking, until Han finally called time and she collapsed on the mat, gasping. Better? He asked. No. Didn't think so, but at least you won't punch someone important. No promises. Han almost smiled. Jay told me what happened. About your father, about Hong Jin. Everyone knows then. Just family, and we're keeping it that way. Last thing we need is the other families finding out the bride has blood revenge motivation against the patriarch. That's the kind of instability that starts wars. He sat down next to her. You thinking about going after him? Would you? If it was your father. My father was nobody. But if someone killed him? Yeah, I'd think about it. Then I'd think about whether I wanted to die for a corpse or live for myself. Usually the answer is live. That's practical. That's survival, which is what you're good at. He stood, offered her a hand. Train harder. Get stronger. Learn everything you can. And if you still want revenge in a year or 5 years or 10, you'll be ready. But rushing it now? That just gets you killed and proves Hong Jin was right to kill your father for being stupid. The logic was sound. Maya hated it, but it was sound. She spent the day training, studying, avoiding Jay and his careful questions, avoiding Mrs. Lim and her worried looks, avoiding everyone except Han, who didn't ask questions and didn't expect answers. That night, Jay found her in the library. We need to talk, he said. Do we? Yes. He closed the door, locked it. About what happens next, about the wedding, about my father. I passed his test. He approved the marriage. What else is there? Everything. Jay sat across from her. You're planning something. I can see it. And before you do whatever you're thinking, I need you to understand what that will cost. I understand perfectly. No, you don't. If you go after my father, I can't protect you. The family will choose him over you, over me, over everything. He's the foundation. You're expendable. I know. Maya closed her book. I've always been expendable, Jay. To you, to your father, to everyone in this world. The only person who ever thought I mattered died 6 years ago because they stole money from the wrong man. So don't sit there and pretend you're protecting me. You're protecting your position. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but I'm done pretending it is. Jay ran a hand over his face. What do you want from me? An apology? My father killed your parents. I can't change that. Can't undo it. Can't make it right. All I can do is give you a choice. Walk away now, and I'll help you disappear. New identity, money, safety. Or stay and accept that the past is dead and we move forward. Move forward, Maya repeated. Marry you. Join your family. Pretend my parents never existed. That sounds healthy. It sounds like survival. It sounds like cowardice. The word hung between them. Jay's expression hardened. Then what would you call brave? Getting yourself killed for revenge? Throwing away everything you've built here? Proving that you're just as stupid as your father was? The slap happened before Maya realized she'd moved. Her palm connected with his face hard enough that the sound echoed. Jay's head snapped to the side. When he looked back, his eyes were cold. Feel better? He asked. No. Good. Because we're not done. He stood, towered over her. You think I don't understand what you're going through? You think I don't know what it's like to hate someone and need them at the same time? My father made me into this, trained me to be ruthless, to see people as assets or threats, to never let emotion cloud judgment. And I've spent 10 years trying to be different, trying to be better. And then I met you, and for the first time I thought maybe I could be. Maybe I could build something that wasn't just blood and power. Maybe I could choose something real. Jay, I chose you, he continued. His voice was raw, honest. Not because you were strategic, not because you strengthened my position. I chose you because when I look at you, I see someone who survived and stayed human, who fought back without becoming a monster, who made me want to be better than what my father raised me to be. Your father killed my parents. I know. And you still expect me to marry you, to join his family, to smile and play nice. No. I expect you to choose. Choose revenge and lose everything, or choose the future and let the past die. But make the choice understanding what it costs either way. Maya stood, faced him. What if I choose both? That's not possible. Isn't it? You said I was smart, strategic, that I understood how this world works. So what if I stay? Marry you, join the family, earn Hong Jin's trust. And then, when the time is right, when I'm strong enough and smart enough and positioned perfectly, she let the sentence hang. Jay's expression shifted. That's not revenge. That's suicide with extra steps. Or it's the long game, the kind your father would respect. Maya, listen to me. Whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything. I'm surviving, like you taught me, like everyone keeps telling me to do. I'm being practical, pragmatic, setting aside emotion for strategy. By plotting to kill my father, by keeping my options open, she held his gaze. You said I had a choice, stay or go. I'm choosing to stay, but I'm also choosing not to forget, not to forgive, not to pretend this is fine. Can you live with that? The silence stretched. Jay's jaw worked. His hands had curled into fists. I don't know, he finally said, but I guess we're going to find out. He left. Maya stayed in the library until the sun came up, staring at nothing, trying to figure out who she'd just become. The wedding was in 3 days. 3 days to decide if she was going to go through with this, if she was going to stand in front of the families and marry the son of her parents' murderer, if she was going to commit to a life built on blood and lies and compromise. 3 days to figure out if she was strong enough to survive what came after, or if revenge was worth dying for. Maya didn't have answers, but she was starting to think that maybe the question itself was wrong. Maybe it wasn't about revenge or survival. Maybe it was about something else entirely. Maybe it was about power. Hong Jin had power. The families had power. They'd use that power to destroy her parents, to control her life, to trap her here. But what if she had power too? What if she stopped being the victim and became the threat? What if she learned everything, earned their trust, positioned herself perfectly, and then burned it all down from the inside? The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like relief, like finally having a plan that didn't involve just surviving, that involved winning. Maya smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just declared war. And 3 days later, she would stand at an altar and marry into the family that killed hers. Not because she had to, but because it was the first move in a game she fully intended to. The wedding dress hung in Maya's room like a ghost. White silk, thousands of tiny pearls sewn by hand, a train that would trail behind her for 6 feet. Mrs. Lim had presented it 2 days ago with tears in her eyes, talking about tradition and honor and how beautiful Maya would look. Maya had stared at it and seen a costume, another role to play in a performance that never ended. She was standing in front of it now, the morning of the wedding, trying to figure out if she could actually go through with this. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Hair done, makeup perfect. The dress fit like it had been made for her, because it had been, measurements taken while she'd stood still and let strangers touch her like she was a mannequin instead of a person. You look beautiful, Mrs. Lim said from the doorway. She'd been crying again, happy tears this time. Jay is a lucky man. Is he? Maya's voice came out flat. Mrs. Lim's smile faltered. Maya, I know this hasn't been easy. I know you didn't choose this, but you've made the best of impossible circumstances. You should be proud. Proud. Maya turned away from the mirror. I'm marrying the son of the man who killed my parents. What exactly should I be proud of? The words hung in the air. Mrs. Lim went very still. You know, she said quietly, everyone knows. Jay told you, told Marcus, told Han. The whole family knows, and nobody said anything. Nobody thought maybe I deserved to know before I stood in front of witnesses and committed my life to this. We were trying to protect you. By lying? By giving you time to adjust, time to understand. Mrs. Lim stepped into the room, closed the door. Maya, your father stole from Hong Jin. That's not a secret. That's fact. And in this world, theft has consequences. I'm sorry your parents died, truly, but they knew the risks. My mother didn't steal anything. She was just there. She married a man who made bad choices. That was her risk. Mrs. Lim's voice was gentle but firm. I know it's not fair. Nothing about this world is fair, But you need to decide if you're going to let that unfairness destroy you or if you're going to use it to become stronger. Stronger, Maya laughed. It sounded broken. Everyone keeps using that word like it means something. Like I'm supposed to be grateful I've been forced to become hard enough to survive in a world that killed my family. Not grateful, but aware. You're not the girl who walked into that ballroom anymore. You're someone who can stand beside Jay, who can navigate this world, who can protect herself. Mrs. Lim touched Maya's shoulder. That's worth something, even if the cost was terrible. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to scream that no, it wasn't worth it. Nothing was worth what she'd lost. But the words stuck in her throat because part of her, the part that had survived killing a man, that had passed the family's tests, that had looked Hong Jin in the eye and lied, that part knew Mrs. Lim was right. She was different now, harder, more dangerous, more capable, just like they'd wanted. The ceremony starts in an hour, Mrs. Lim said. I'll give you time to prepare. She left. Maya stood alone in the white dress, looking at her reflection and trying to recognize herself. The ceremony was held in a private estate Maya had never seen before. Gardens that probably cost millions to maintain. A courtyard with a fountain in the center and white roses everywhere. Chairs arranged in perfect rows. The families were already seated when Maya arrived, all of them dressed in their finest, watching with expressions that ranged from approval to calculation to barely concealed hostility. Taiwan Song was there. His face was a mask, but his eyes promised violence. He hadn't forgiven her for killing his brother. Never would. The second this marriage gave him an opening, he'd take it. Maya walked down the aisle alone. No father to give her away. No family at all except the people who'd destroyed hers. Each step felt like walking deeper into a trap she'd set for herself. Jay was waiting at this altar. He looked perfect. Suit tailored precisely, hair combed back, expression controlled. But when Maya got close enough to see his eyes, she saw fear there. Raw and honest and completely at odds with his composed exterior. He was as terrified as she was. The officiant began speaking. Traditional words about unity and honor and commitment. Maya barely heard them. She was too focused on breathing, on standing, on not running. Do you, Maya Torres, take Jay Hyan Kong as your lawfully wedded husband? The question echoed in the sudden silence. Every face turned to her, waiting, watching. This was it. The moment where she chose. Survival or freedom, safety or truth, the future or the past. Maya looked at Jay, saw the man who'd kidnapped her, who'd trained her, who'd protected her and lied to her and become something she didn't have words for. Saw Hong Jin in the front row, smiling like he'd won. Saw the families watching like vultures waiting for weakness. I do, Maya said. The words felt like surrender, like victory, like both at once. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Jay kissed her. It was supposed to be gentle, ceremonial. Instead, it felt desperate, like he was holding on to the last piece of something real before it all fell apart. The reception was worse than the ceremony. Endless courses of food, speeches that praised the union and barely concealed the political implications, dancing that felt like performance art. Maya smiled and thanked people and played the role of blushing bride while her mind raced ahead to what came next. Hong Jin approached her during a lull. Mrs. Kong, may I have this dance? Maya's blood turned to ice, but she took his offered hand because refusing would raise questions. Let him lead her onto the dance floor, tried not to think about the last time she'd been this close to him. You did well today, Hong Jin said as they moved to the music. Played your part perfectly. Thank you. I know this hasn't been easy, learning about your father, about what he did, what I did. His voice was low, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. But you've handled it with grace. That speaks well of your character. Or my survival instinct, he smiled. Same thing in this world. You understand that now. You understand that sometimes we do terrible things to protect what's ours. Your father threatened my family. I eliminated the threat. It wasn't personal, just necessary. Maya forced herself to meet his eyes. I understand. Do you? Because I need to know that you're not going to become a problem, that you're loyal to this family now, that the past is truly buried. The past is dead, Maya said, and meant it. Her parents were gone. Her old life was gone. The girl she'd been was gone. All that remained was this, The woman who'd married into the family that destroyed hers. I'm focused on the future. Good. Hong Jin's grip tightened slightly. Because the future of this family depends on unity, on loyalty, on everyone understanding their place. You've earned your place, Maya. Don't lose it by being sentimental. The dance ended. Hong Jin returned her to Jay with a nod that looked paternal and felt like a warning. What did he say? Jay asked quietly. That I need to remember my place. And what did you say? That I understand. Maya looked at him. Do you think I meant it? I don't know. Did you? Before Maya could answer, Chairman Kim approached. Mr. and Mrs. Kong. Congratulations on your union. The families are pleased. Thank you, Chairman, Jay said. There is, however, one final matter to address. Chairman Kim gestured to a side room. A private matter, if you would both join me. Maya's stomach clenched. Jay's hand found hers. They followed Chairman Kim into a study lined with books and weapons in glass cases. The door closed behind them. 3 other family heads were waiting, including Taewon. What is this? Jay demanded. A formality, Chairman Kim said. Your marriage is recognized, but there remains the question of blood debt. Blood debt? Maya's voice came out steady despite her racing heart. Your parents' deaths, Taewon said. His voice dripped contempt. You know Hong Jin ordered their execution. You know why. By our laws, you have the right to demand compensation or challenge. We need to know if you intend to claim that right. This was the trap, the final test. They were giving her the option to seek justice. But claiming it would destroy everything, would start a war, would prove she wasn't loyal. My parents are dead, Maya said carefully. Nothing changes that. Not compensation, not challenges, not revenge. So you forfeit your right to blood debt? Chairman Kim asked. I forfeit the past. I'm part of this family now. That means moving forward. And you're certain? Once you forfeit, the right cannot be reclaimed. Your parents' deaths will be considered settled business, closed. Maya felt something crack inside her chest. This was it. The moment where she chose who she was going to be. The girl who'd loved her parents, or the woman who'd survived their deaths. I'm certain, she said. Then it's settled. Chairman Kim pulled out a document. Sign this. It's a formal declaration that you hold no grievance against Hong Jin Kong or the Kong family for actions taken against Daniel and Maria Torres. Once signed, the matter is permanently closed. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Maya stared at the document, at her parents' names in black ink, at the line where she'd sign away her right to justice. Jay's hand was still in hers. She could feel him shaking, or maybe that was her. Maya signed. The ink was barely dry when Taewon spoke. You're pathetic. Your parents died and you just accept it? Forgive it? You dishonor their memory. Careful, Jay warned. Or what? You'll defend your bride's honor? The bride who just sold her parents' lives for a comfortable position? Taewon stepped closer. I hope you're worth it, Mrs. Kong. I hope whatever you're planning is worth the price of your soul. I'm not planning anything. Liar. Taewon smiled. Cold. Calculating. I see it in your eyes. You're going to try something. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually, you'll make a move. And when you do, I'll be waiting. You took my brother from me. I'll take everything from you. That's enough, Chairman Kim cut in. The matter is settled. We leave. Now. They filed out, left Maya and Jay alone in the study with a signed document that made her parents' murder official business. Resolved, done. Maya's legs gave out. She caught herself on the desk. Jay was there immediately, arms around her, holding her up. I've got you, he said. I've got you. I just signed away my parents' lives. You signed away a piece of paper, that's all. That's everything. Maya pushed away from him. Don't you understand? I just told the world that my parents' deaths don't matter, that I forgive the man who killed them, that I'm loyal to a family built on their blood. You did what you had to do to survive. At what cost? Her voice broke. What am I now, Jay? What have I become? You're my wife, your family, you're a coward, a traitor, someone who chose comfort over justice. You chose life over death. There's no shame in that. Isn't there? Maya laughed. It came out ragged. My parents died because my father made stupid choices, and I'm making the same ones. Choosing survival, choosing safety, choosing to compromise everything I believed in because I'm too scared to do anything else. Jay grabbed her shoulders, forced her to look at him. You are not your father. You didn't steal from anyone. Didn't get yourself killed out of greed. You survived a situation he put you in. That's not the same. Then why does it feel the same? Because you're human. Because you're allowed to grieve and be angry and hate every choice you've had to make. But Maya, listen to me. You are still here. You are still fighting. That matters. Does it? She was crying now, actually crying, something she hadn't let herself do since the night she'd recognized Hong Jin. What am I fighting for? What's the point of surviving if I lose everything that made me worth surviving? Jay pulled her close, held her while she shook. The point is that you get to decide what comes next. You've paid every price they asked. You've passed every test. You've proven yourself. Now you get to choose who you want to be. I don't know who that is anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. They stayed like that for a long time. Maya crying into Jay's shoulder, Jay holding her like she was something precious instead of something broken. Outside, the reception continued without them. Music and laughter and people celebrating a union that felt more like a funeral. Eventually, Maya pulled back, wiped her face. I need to leave. What? Not forever. Just tonight. I need to be alone. Need to think. Need to... She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't explain the suffocating feeling in her chest. Where will you go? I don't know. Somewhere. Anywhere that isn't here. Jay looked like he wanted to argue. Then he pulled out his keys. Take the car. Go wherever you need to go. Just come back. Jay, promise me you'll come back. Maya looked at the man she'd just married, saw desperation there, fear, and underneath it, something that might have been love if either of them had been capable of that anymore. I'll come back, she said, and meant it. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because despite everything, Jay was the only person who'd ever seen her as something other than a problem to solve. She left through a side exit, took the keys, got in the car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than her parents' apartment had, drove with no destination in mind, just away. The city passed in a blur, rich neighborhoods giving way to middle class, giving way to poor. Maya drove until the buildings looked familiar, until she recognized streets she'd walked 1,000 times, until she found herself parked outside her old apartment building. It looked smaller than she remembered, shabbier. The front door was still broken, the steps still cracked. Nothing had changed except her. Maya got out of the car, climbed the stairs, stood outside apartment 4C and stared at the door. Someone else lived there now. She could hear a TV through the thin walls, voices arguing, life continuing like her family had never existed. She sat down on the stairs, still in her wedding dress, still wearing makeup that had smudged from crying, looking like she'd escaped from a magazine and landed in the wrong zip code. A neighbor passed, Mrs. Chen from 3B. She'd been kind to Maya after her parents died, had brought food, had checked on her. Maya? Mrs. Chen stopped, stared. Is that you? Hi, Mrs. Chen. Oh my goodness, look at you, in that dress. You look like a princess. Are you getting married? Already did. A few hours ago. Congratulations, Mrs. Chen beamed, then her expression shifted to concern. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be at your reception? Probably. Maya looked down at her hands, at the ring on her finger, simple platinum band, expensive. I just needed to come back, see where I used to live. Remember who I was before. Mrs. Chen sat down beside her, didn't seem to care about the dirty stairs or Maya's expensive dress. You were a good girl, always polite, always working hard. I was worried about you after your parents passed. You were so young, but you survived. Yeah, I survived. You don't sound happy about it. Maya almost laughed. Is anyone happy about surviving, or do we just do it because the alternative is worse? Both, I think. Mrs. Chen patted her hand. Life is hard, Maya, especially for people like us. We don't get to choose our circumstances. We just do our best with what we're given. You've done better than most. Have I? Because it doesn't feel that way. You're alive, you're married. You're wearing a dress that probably costs more than I make in a year. That's better than where you were 6 years ago. The words should have felt like comfort. Instead, they felt like condemnation. Because Mrs. Chen was right. Maya had traded up, had married into wealth and power, had secured a future. All it had cost was her soul. I should go, Maya said, standing. My husband is probably worried. You'll be okay, Maya. You're strong. You've always been strong. Maya nodded, went back to the car, sat in the driver's seat, and stared at her old building until the tears came again. Not gentle this time, harsh, ugly, the kind of crying that hurt. She cried for her parents, for the girl she'd been, for every choice that had led her here, for the future she'd just signed away. Then she wiped her face, started the car, and made a decision. She wasn't going back to the reception, wasn't going back to play nice and smile and pretend everything was fine. She was going to the one place she'd been avoiding since the night everything fell apart. She was going to see Hong Jin. The Kong estate was quiet when Maya arrived. The reception had ended, guests departed, only family remained. Maya parked the car, walked to the main house, let herself in with the key she'd been given because she was family now, had every right to be here. She found Hong Jin in his study, alone, drinking whiskey and reading reports like it was any other night. He looked up when she entered, didn't seem surprised. Mrs. Kong, he said, I didn't expect to see you tonight. Shouldn't you be with your husband? I needed to talk to you first. About? He set down his glass, gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Maya stayed standing. I signed that document, forfeited my right to blood debt, told everyone I've moved past my parents' deaths. Yes, very smart of you. I lied. Hong Jin's expression didn't change. I assumed as much. You assumed? Maya stopped, stared. You knew I was lying? Of course. No one forgives their parents' murder that easily. Not unless they're weak. And you're many things, Maya, but weak isn't one of them. He poured another glass of whiskey, offered it to her. So, what do you want? Revenge? Justice? Closure? Maya took the glass. Didn't drink, just held it. I want to understand. Why them? Why my father? There must have been other ways to handle embezzlement. There were. I chose the permanent one. Why? Because your father didn't just steal money. He stole respect. He looked at my generosity, giving him a job, paying him well, and decided it wasn't enough. That he deserved more. That he could take from me and I wouldn't notice. Hong Jin's voice was calm, matter of fact. I couldn't let that stand. Not without looking weak. And in this world, weakness is death. So you killed him. I eliminated a problem before it became a bigger problem, standard business. And my mother was a complication. I'm sorry about that. Truly. She didn't deserve what happened, but she was there, and leaving witnesses creates loose ends. No loose ends, Maya repeated. The words tasted like poison. That's what you said that night. I heard you. Hong Jin's eyebrows rose slightly. You were there? Hiding in the closet. I watched you kill my parents. Watched you walk away like it was nothing, like they were nothing. They were something, just not more important than my family's security. He studied her. You've held on to this for 6 years, nursed your anger, and now you're here. On your wedding night, instead of with my son. Why? Because I need to know if you have any regrets. Regrets? Hong Jin considered the question. I regret that a talented accountant made stupid choices. I regret that his wife was collateral damage. I regret that his daughter spent 6 years alone and struggling. But do I regret making the decision I made? No. Given the same circumstances, I'd make it again. The honesty was somehow worse than a lie would have been. Maya set down the whiskey glass before she threw it. Thank you, she said. For what? For confirming what I already knew, that you're exactly what I thought you were, that there's no misunderstanding to clear up, no secret reason that makes it okay. You killed my parents because it was convenient, because they were in your way, because you could. Yes. Hong Jin stood, walked around the desk, stopped 3 feet from her. And now you know. So what are you going to do about it? Kill me? Try to destroy the family? Spend your life plotting revenge? Maya met his eyes, saw nothing there but cold calculation. The same expression he'd probably worn while ordering her parents' deaths. "No," she said quietly. "I'm not going to do any of that." "No? Because you were right. In this world, survival matters more than justice. Power matters more than fairness. And I've spent 6 years being powerless, being the victim, being the girl whose parents died and left her with nothing." She straightened her shoulders. "I'm done being that girl. I'm going to be something else instead." "And what's that?" "Someone you should have killed when you had the chance." The threat hung in the air. Hongjin smiled, actually smiled. "Good. You're finally learning. Welcome to the family, Maya. The real family. Not the pretty version we show outsiders. The version that understands that power is the only thing that matters. That survival requires ruthlessness. That sentiment is weakness. I understand all of that. Better than you think. Then we understand each other." He extended his hand. "No hard feelings?" Maya looked at the offered hand, at the man who'd destroyed her family, who'd created the circumstances that brought her here, who'd just admitted he'd do it all again without hesitation. She shook his hand, felt his grip, firm, confident, completely unafraid. "No hard feelings," she lied. She left his study, found Jay waiting in the hallway. He looked exhausted, worried, like he'd been pacing for hours. "Where did you go?" he asked. "To see your father." "Maya." I needed to hear him say it, needed to know if there was any part of him that regretted what he did, any humanity left. She looked at Jay, really looked. There isn't. He's exactly what he appears to be, a man who sees people as assets or obstacles, nothing more. I could have told you that. I needed to hear it from him. Maya took Jay's hand. "Come on, let's go home." "Which home?" "Ours, wherever that is." They ended up in Jay's private quarters, a section of the estate Maya had never seen before, smaller than she expected, more personal. Books on shelves, photos on walls, Jay as a child, stiff and serious even then, a bed that looked slept in. Proof that he was human underneath all the armor. "This is where I hide," Jay said, "when everything gets too heavy, when I need to be alone." "And you're bringing me here?" "You're my wife. You're allowed in all my hiding places now." Maya sat on the edge of the bed, still in her wedding dress, still wearing the mask of composed bride. "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Be married, be part of this family, survive what comes next." She looked up at him. "I don't know how to be the person I need to be to live in this world. The person who forgives murders, who compromises everything, who becomes just as ruthless as everyone else." Jay sat beside her. "You don't have to become that person." "Don't I? Your father just told me that sentiment is weakness, that survival requires ruthlessness, that I need to stop being the victim and start being the threat." "My father is wrong about a lot of things." "Is he?" "Because from where I'm sitting, he's built an empire. He's survived 40 years in a world designed to kill people like him. He's powerful and feared and untouchable. Maybe he's right. And maybe power isn't worth what it costs." Jay took her hand. "I've watched my father sacrifice everything for power, relationships, trust, his own humanity. He's the strongest person I know and the loneliest. Is that what you want?" "I want to not feel helpless. I want to not spend the rest of my life wondering when the next threat is coming. I want—" Maya stopped, swallowed. "I want my parents back, but I can't have that. So I'll settle for making sure no one can hurt me like that again, by becoming like my father, by becoming strong enough that people think twice before coming after me." Jay was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I understand, but Maya, please hear me. Strength doesn't have to mean cruelty. Protection doesn't have to mean isolation. You can be powerful without becoming what you hate." "Can I? Because every example I've seen suggests otherwise." "Then let me be your example." He turned to face her fully. "I'm not my father. I've tried to be different. To build something that isn't just blood and fear. Have I made mistakes? Yes. Have I done things I regret? More than I can count, but I keep trying to be better. And with you—" He stopped, started again. "With you, I actually think I can be." Maya looked at him, at the man who'd kidnapped her and married her and somehow become the only stable thing in a world built on shifting sand. What if I can't be better? She whispered. What if I'm too angry, too broken? What if all I want is revenge and I'm just waiting for the right moment? Then I'll wait with you, and when that moment comes, I'll help you decide if revenge is worth what it'll cost. It might cost everything. I know. It might destroy us both. I know that too. He pulled her closer. But I'd rather face that future with you than face anything else without you. Maya closed her eyes, let herself lean into him, let herself be held by someone who'd seen every ugly part of her and hadn't run. I don't love you. I know. I might never love you. That's okay. But I don't want to lose you. Then don't. Jay pressed his forehead to hers. Stay. Fight. Become whoever you need to become. Just don't leave. Maya opened her eyes, looked at the man she'd married, the son of her enemy, the heir to everything she should hate, and made a choice. Not revenge. Not yet. Not forgiveness. Never that. But something in between. Something that looked like survival but felt like strategy. She would stay, would learn, would become powerful enough that when she finally made her move, if she made her move, she'd be strong enough to survive the aftermath. And if that made her like Hong Jin, maybe that was the price of surviving in his world. Okay, Maya said. I'll stay. Jay kissed her, gentle at first, then desperate, like he'd been expecting her to run and couldn't believe she'd chosen to remain. They made it through their wedding night, and the next day, and the week after that. Maya settled into her role as Jay's wife with a precision that surprised everyone. She attended family dinners, participated in business discussions, learned the operations of the Kong Empire with a focus that made Marcus nervous and Han proud. She didn't plot revenge, didn't make threats, didn't give anyone reason to doubt her loyalty. But she watched, learned, positioned herself. 3 months after the wedding, Hong Jin called a family meeting. Crisis situation. One of their subsidiaries had been hit with fraud allegations. Someone had leaked information to regulators. The family needed to decide how to respond. Maya sat quietly while they debated. Watched Hong Jin control the room with casual authority. Watched Jay try to find a middle ground between protecting the family and doing the right thing. Watched the others defer to Hong Jin's judgment, like always. Then she spoke. The leak came from inside, Maya said. Everyone turned to look at her. Someone in the family or close to it. The information that got leaked was too specific, too targeted. Impossible, Hong Jin said. My people are loyal. Are they? Because from where I'm sitting, someone just risked destroying a multi-million-dollar subsidiary to hurt you. That's not an outside attack. That's personal. The room went silent. Hong Jin's expression hardened. You're suggesting we have a traitor. I'm suggesting you have someone who thinks they can take you down. And if you don't find them, they'll try again. The meeting continued, but the tone had shifted. Hong Jin was looking at her differently, seeing her as something other than Jay's choice, seeing her as potentially useful. After the meeting, he pulled her aside. That was good work. How did you know it was internal? I didn't, not for sure, but I've been studying your operations, looking at patterns, and this didn't fit. External attacks are usually louder, more aggressive. This was surgical, precise, the kind of thing someone with inside knowledge would do. And you spotted that after 3 months of paying attention. I'm a fast learner. Hong Jin studied her. You know, when Jay first chose you, I thought he was making a mistake, letting sentiment cloud his judgment, but you're more than I expected. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. It was an observation. You're smart, ambitious, willing to do what needs doing. In other words, you're dangerous. To who? To anyone who underestimates you. He smiled, that cold smile Maya had learned to hate. Keep proving yourself useful, Maya. Keep making the family stronger, and maybe I'll forget that you have every reason to want me dead. He walked away. Left Maya standing in the hallway trying to figure out if she'd just been threatened or complimented. Probably both. 6 months after the wedding, Maya had become indispensable. She'd uncovered 3 more leaks, negotiated a deal with the Kim family that saved the Kongs millions, started training a security team that actually listened to her, built a reputation as someone who got things done without asking unnecessary questions. Hong Jin trusted her, or as close to trust as he was capable of. That's when Maya made her move. Not revenge, not destruction, something smarter. She'd found evidence. Records Hong Jin had kept hidden. Documentation of every illegal operation. Every murder, every bribe, every crime committed over 40 years. He'd kept it all as insurance, leverage against the other families, proof that he could take them all down if they came after him. Maya copied everything. Stored it somewhere safe, somewhere even Jay didn't know about. Then she sat on it. Because revenge wasn't about destroying Hong Jin, it was about being strong enough that he couldn't destroy her. About having power that matched his. About survival. 1 year after the wedding, Maya stood in the same ballroom where this had all started. Different occasion this time. A celebration. The Kong family had just secured the largest development deal in the city's history. Hong Jin was giving a speech, talking about family, legacy, the future. Jay was beside Maya, his hand in hers. They'd learned to be partners, not lovers. That intimacy still felt impossible, but allies. People who understood each other in ways no one else could. "You okay?" Jay murmured. "Yeah, why?" "Because you have that look. The one you get when you're 3 steps ahead of everyone else." Maya smiled. "I'm fine, just thinking." "About?" "About how far we've come. About where we're going. About—" She paused, looked at Hong Jin, at the man who'd killed her parents, who'd nearly destroyed her, who'd created the circumstances that made her into this. "About whether I've become who I need to be yet," she finished. Jay followed her gaze. "And have you?" Maya thought about the girl who'd walked into this ballroom a year ago, desperate, scared, powerless. Thought about the woman she'd become, hard, strategic, dangerous in ways that girl never could have imagined. Thought about the files hidden away, the evidence that could bring down an empire, the power she now held. "Yeah," she said quietly. "I think I have." "Does that mean you're planning something?" "It means I'm prepared, if I need to be." "And if you do?" "If you decide to use whatever you've been building." Maya looked at him, at the man she'd married, the son of her enemy, the only person who'd ever really seen her. "Then I'll make sure we both survive it," she said. Because that's what this had always been about. Not revenge, not justice, not even love. Survival. And Maya Torres, no, Maya Kong now, had become very good at surviving. The ballroom glittered around them. Crystal chandeliers, silk dresses, champagne laughter. The same scene as the night everything changed. But Maya wasn't trapped anymore. Wasn't desperate. Wasn't powerless. She was exactly where she needed to be. And if Hong Jin ever made the mistake of thinking she'd truly forgiven him, well, that would be his last mistake. But for now, Maya smiled, raised her glass, toasted the family's success, and buried her rage so deep that nobody, not Hong Jin, not the families, not even Jay, could see it burning. Some wounds never healed, they just learned to hide better. And Maya had become very, very good at hiding,